Yggdrasia welcomes you. Virtual reality VR, as known to the public, began its first steps with a purely visual and oral-only system. In time, VR soon managed to replicate all sensations, and full dive systems became the norm. The technology quickly made itself indispensable in a multitude of industries. Some years later, the avatar system was born, a technology that made use of avatar bodies, crafted from electronics, special proteins and enzymes, to allow one to do dangerous work or journey the world from the comfort of their own homes through virtual reality. And of course, it was also the heyday for VR games. Worlds of dreams and fantasy were realized upon servers, only limited by the human imagination. People waited with bated breath for the next invention, the next leap forward. That was when a conglomerate, hailing from a certain first-world country, joined the VRMMO scene. They began recruiting beta testers for their MMORPG from all over the planet. Created by a corporation famed for their work in the medical and defense industry and sponsored by the government, the game instantly became famous worldwide. 3 million people applied, fighting over the 10,000 slots allowed for the beta test. So grand, so fascinating was the newly revealed world, that people wondered if this wasn't actually interdimensional travel instead. Applicants were chosen based on their age, sex, character, employment, education, health, criminal history, and other factors. And for the lucky 10,000, what awaited them was the world they've been salivating over, Yggdrasia. A land centered around the towering world tree, and 99 of its saplings supported the continents with a combined size equivalent to Earth. A tuxedo-clad stuffed dog appeared. The tester needed a guide to Yggdrasia, so the AI created one. The tester showed no reaction, and the guide kept quiet in return, until it found the right words, selected out of the millions of possible answers it has been programmed with. My, young lady, you're quite the adorable rabbit, aren't you? She said nothing. When the avatar system was established, the biggest problem it encountered was the disconnect between the human controller's perception and the avatar's. To put it simply, the disorder was caused by the differences between the human controller's sex, physique, bone structure, height of field of view, length of limbs, or other such major characteristics and the avatar's own. Subtle differences in facial details and hair colors, however, weren't a problem. Even if their avatars did have major differences, no symptoms would show as long as the users keep their operation time short. It was constant, long-term avatar use that was the trigger, and in some cases, the user would start experiencing symptoms of mental rejections. Once symptoms showed, as long as users rested for a few days without using VR, they would experience no lasting effects. But if they continued for several days, their psyches would begin to destabilize, with some users reporting nausea and anxiety. The first solution to this problem was to lower the avatar's sensitivity, but the decision was reversed after the deluge of complaints coming from users who had been spoiled by the realism. The simplest solution, as decided upon by the VR industry and the medical association, was just to warn users to use an avatar as similar to yourself as possible. This decision prompted the VR device makers to begin incorporating full-body scanners into their product as the standard. And most VR services strongly recommended their customers to copy their appearance to use as their avatars. Of course, the game industry was no exception. Players were allowed some leeway through changing their age setting, but in most cases, their avatars were almost carbon copies of their real bodies. Thus, our tester, as appeared in the AI guide's room for her initial game setting, looked the same as her scanned body in real life. If there was a real human supervising this process, they would have immediately intervened when they heard the AI call the tester an adorable rabbit. According to the AI's preliminary information, the girl in front of it was a Japanese immigrant, 11 years old, suffered from a congenital absence of pigmentation, an albino. She was quite a bit smaller than the average for her age. She wore a simple white dress reminiscent of hospital gowns. Her arms and legs, peeking out from the dress, were barely better than twigs. On a closer look, you could see what seemed to be bruises dotting her white skin. True, she could be considered cute, and true, her slightly scruffy white hair and scarlet eyes set into a permanent glare did make her look like a rabbit. But if an actual human with real emotions was to see her, they wouldn't call her cute. They'd say she looked pitiful. The albino stayed silent, showing no signs she heard the AI. After the required time had elapsed for the program, the stuffed dog changed its pose and began the next explanation. Well then, miss, allow me to explain about the world of Yggdrasia. At the center of Yggdrasia was a giant, towering world tree, and from it spawned 99 saplings to bless the lands. They attracted the race of humans, and around the saplings, 33 major and 66 minor countries formed out of the myriads of villages, towns, cities, and metropolitans. Population of major countries started from a few millions to tens of millions citizens, or for minor countries, hundreds of thousands to a few millions. The human civilization looked like a mix of real-life medieval and early modern age history if we ignored the existence of magical tools. Much like electrical appliances, these devices utilized mana to serve the same purposes, and they were affordable enough even for most commoners. In larger cities, people could live, if not like a king, then at least quite comfortably. Even carriages, trains, and ships used magical engines. Despite the world being Earth-sized, transportation and traveling were relatively simple. Yggdrasia was filled with the power of magic, or to be more precise, mana. Most combat centered around the use of melee weapons, magic, or rarely, single-shot magically powered muskets. All players were humans, but human was not the only race. There were also elves, dwarves, beastmen, dragonkins, and many other races of demi-human. They lived in settlements and colonies deep inside forests and mountains, far away from human countries. Next, there were goblinoids and monster races such as goblins, orcs, ogres, and more, who opposed all humankind. To raise the stakes, the game featured a death penalty, lowered magic power, 10% decrease in stats, and dropping inventory items. In case the player had not set a respawn point, they would revive at a random location near their former death. If the player died again without raising their stats back, their character will be deleted. Pain was simulated, but only by 10%. Players would still feel the shock of being hit even if they lowered their pain setting to the minimum. Criminal activities would be punished following the laws of the local country, with jail time as one of the possible punishments. Players could fight each other, but if they were caught by law enforcement and received a long enough sentence, their accounts would be deleted. Playing as a criminal was allowed, but if you got on the wanted list, your activities would be severely restricted. Speed of time in game was practically the same as real time. Considering the size of the world itself, each area of the game had its own time zone. Did you get all of that? Well then, miss, to our next business. Normally, this is where beta testers start creating their characters, but since you are one of the secret alpha testers, you will be choosing your race. As per your contract, once the testing period ends, you will be required to maintain confidentiality, and your living expenses for the next 10 years will be fully covered. The guide AI finished its speech. The white girl nodded just a fraction. Secret alpha testers, 100 orphans, gathered in secret to serve as test subjects. Publicly, this experiment's purpose was to gather data in order to implement PvP between human players and monster players. Purportedly, it examined the psyche of a user when they used an entirely non-human body, as well as the mental and physical stress of constant long-term VR use with the user's body put into cold sleep. But there were another secret reason for this experiment. Military use. Alpha testers were given non-human avatars with the sensitivity set as high as the technology could allow and forced to stay logged in for half a year. Your choices for races are as follows. Goblinoids. Examples of this type would be goblins and kobolds. Other than that, you can choose between beast type, dragon type, plant type, but I would recommend demon. The white girl spoke for the first time. Excuse me. The AI's speech protocol started up a new dialogue. I see. You would pick the demon race, then. I do not recommend using a spiritual body type of avatar, but if that is your choice, well then, please go to the door over there. We will also begin installing the world's common language pack on the way, so please stay calm. As the girl gave a slight nod and walked, the AI executed its final programmed action. Then I shall wish you a wonderful life in Yggdrasia. Oh, I almost forgot one last thing. Please tell me your name. It called after the still nameless girl, but she kept walking. Don't need one, she muttered. Her final steps put her on a road of light leading into the world of the new VRMMORPG, Yggdrasia. I sighed in relief. Finally managed to get inside the game. This experiment thing was suspicious, admittedly, but it'd still be better living conditions compared to my former orphanage. The aura of light covering me faded. My body, formerly human, was converted into the demon avatar I chose. Bright, too bright. My head hurt from the 360 degrees vision I now had. I was seeing from every part of my body instead of just my eyes. I did get the explanation, but experiencing it myself was quite intense. The closer the simulation got to reality, the worse the feeling of disconnect became. Apparently, just a few years ago, the syndrome didn't even exist. Not surprising considering that at the time, VR couldn't simulate smells, and systems only used vibration to fake the sense of touch. The corporation said they wanted to implement PvP between human and monster players, but if processing visual information alone was this bad, I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen anytime soon. Well, I guess that's why they needed testers. Which reminded me, they said secret alpha testers would have their sensitivity to pain and the senses turned to maximum, but I'd hoped they would use my physical data to tweak the finer details. The problem was whether they'd do it before their data gathering finished or not. I probably shouldn't have much hope here. So, half a year like this, with zero rest. I guess that was why the AI said this race wasn't recommended. Yet still, when it asked me what I wanted to be, this was the only choice I could think of. My vision twisted and turned, like seeing through a kaleidoscope inside a churning whirlpool. Without the ability to even close my eyes, I decided to stay still for somewhere around an hour. Finally, the feeling abated to a level I can bear. Perhaps my brain finally managed to process all this visual information. Urgh, I felt like puking. My head still spun from the dizziness and nausea, but I couldn't give up here. They wouldn't allow the secret alpha testers to give up here. Still, the rest was worthwhile. I could finally look around. And even I, a girl who normally kept a tight lid on her emotions, was amazed by what I saw. I'd heard that you couldn't distinguish VR games these days from real life, but this was far beyond what I expected. A light breeze, rustling leaves, shadows and dappled sunlight dancing on the ground. The wind carrying the smell of grass, of earth, and of water. All this, I felt. This was a forest. Around me were trees, and more trees. No signs of civilization anywhere. Nothing here. No, wait. I was a monster right now. I had a feeling bad things would happen if I got close to a human village. If this world was as realistic as was explained to me, human and monsters were enemies. But I had more important things to worry about. The moment I understood what was around me, finally, I also understood what I was. A white slime. Not the bouncy, stretchy type, but a dripping, sticky slime made of thick liquid. I looked like somebody mixed up some watery dough or oobleck, then dropped the whole thing on the ground. How does this work? Could I move? I was drawing blanks on this body's mechanics of locomotion. It took me a few moments to realize there was a small, coin-sized piece of crystal on the ground near me. What was this thing? As I imagined stretching my arms, a piece of slime flew out and wrapped around the crystal. Right, don't think about moving. Just do it. At the same time, it didn't actually feel like I was moving my arms, but rather, something shot out from my shoulder. It was terribly uncomfortable. Anyway, the crystal. What was it? This perfect sphere couldn't have naturally formed. Oh, right, virtual reality. That meant it should be some kind of item. Identification Crystal 9899. This crystal ball allows one to identify one's own power and other game items. This is a bonus item for first-time players. One can buy a similar item in large cities, but they're only usable 10 times. Looking into the crystal allows one to know the general strength of the target. It may be possible to learn how to identify without a crystal. Do your best. An identification item. I only thought about what this thing could be, and a message appeared inside my mind. What was this number? On a whim, I used the crystal to look at a nearby tree. Tree 9799th. Magic points, 5. Yup, got it. The tree wasn't a game item, so I couldn't get any details on it. In contrast, the crystal was 1, so there was plenty of information. At least, that was my standing theory. Magic points. Was that the MP thing? Even trees had that. According to the extremely detailed language pack and game information pack installed in my mind, the world was filled with mana. This might be what it meant. Wait, the number dropped. Was that 9799th after the info box supposed to be the remaining uses of the identification crystal? It said I could buy something similar in towns, but monsters couldn't enter towns, right? Possible to learn how to identify without a crystal. I really hoped I could do that before I ran out of uses. At any rate, I still had to use it one more time. On me, no name infant demon 9699th. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points, 20/20. Total combat power, 21/21. Unique skill, reroll. So I guess I was pretty weak. The description did say extremely fragile, and I only had 4 times the magic points of a tree. I'd admit I hadn't ever played a game before, but judging from the information jammed inside my head, wasn't it supposed to show more details like my strength, speed, and whatnot? Let's see. If I remembered correctly, this game was about defeating enemies and getting stronger, right? Who is the enemy? Will they be easy enough opponents for me? Actually, how do I fight? Wait, more importantly, can I move at all? I imagined myself moving forward. It worked, but so nauseous. That aside, I was curious about this unique skill thing. Sounded kinda cool. I started wondering about the details of the skill, and immediately some text appeared. Unique skill, reroll 95/99th. Uses up magic power. If activated upon a failed skill check, you will reroll the result. The more severe the failure, the more the required magic power. Bonus skill. Use of this skill is limited to secret testers. I can use this. Right. It said the skill was a bonus, but I was pretty sure they were just testing to see whether using it mentally affected the user or not anyway. Also, the skill itself wasn't exactly surprising. I knew why I have it. I started moving. Every time I tried to go anywhere, it felt like being pushed from a cliff while blindfolded. After a while, I realized my surroundings had gotten dark. Half a day and I probably didn't even move more than 3 meters. The nausea constantly assaulting me was my brain's interpretation of the feeling of disconnect due to my extremely inhuman body. There was nothing wrong with my body, which was currently in cold sleep. It was all in the mind, so I could only power through it. I wondered if the other secret alpha testers had to go through the same thing. I didn't have a chance to have a decent talk with them, and I don't think I ever would. 100 of us spread all over this huge world. The possibility of us meeting was infinitesimal. A bigger problem here was encountering the 10,000 beta testers. I couldn't speak at the moment, so it was likely I would just be killed on the spot if I ever met one of them. I couldn't even run. Dying several times in a row would get your character deleted. I'm sure the corporation wouldn't allow me to try again if that happened, and I'd lose that paid living expenses for 10 years reward, too. Maybe they'd know I'm a player if I showed them my identification crystal. Anyway, I should find somewhere safe before it got dark. I heard something. Some distance away from me was a red thing. It looked like a caterpillar. It reared its head, like a snake trying to intimidate, and screeched. Was it just an insect? Or perhaps a monster? It looked strangely powerful, probably because of the scars I saw on its back. Crap. The red caterpillar spat something at me. Yuck. I tried to dodge, tried being the key word. The movement itself made me want to hurl. Next came the scorching heat and pain, as much as this body could recognize pain anyway. But the pain wasn't the worst thing. No, it was the disturbing sense of my body eroding bit by bit. The feeling scared me so much I accidentally used the identification crystal. No name 94/99th. Magic points 18/20th. Total combat power 20/21st. My magic power went down. My combat power 2. Did spiritual life forms have magic itself as their bodies? And my combat power was tied to my magic. I tried to run even as my mind was floundering in confusion, and the caterpillar gave chase. Holy hell, were we slow, both of us. It crawled. Yet it was still faster than me, even if only slightly. Let's see how strong it was. Red caterpillar 93/99. Magic points 22/25 hit points, 30/30. Total combat power 27. Shit, it was stronger than me. Just as the item description said, identification really did only show the general strength. It screamed. Again, the acidish projectile splashed on me. Hot, hot, hot. No name 92/99. Magic points 16/20. Total combat power 19/21. Red caterpillar 91/99. Magic points 18/25 hit points, 30/30. Total combat power 27. My power dropped again, yet the caterpillars didn't. This must be the difference between spiritual life forms and normal monsters. Also, I used the crystal way too often. It had limited uses, damn it. Shit, it caught up. It's biting me. Ouch, ouch. It felt like my own existence was being gouged out. Right, my unique skill. Reroll. The caterpillar tried to bite me again, but the moment its fangs were about to pierce me, they hit only air. I got out of that attack, but was that it? No name 90/99. Magic points 6/20. Total combat power 12/21. Fuck. I lost a ton of magic. This skill was way too expensive. Oh god, it's eating me. I died. Once I ran out of magic points, my spiritual body disappeared. I was reborn later, somewhere in a forest. My first battle was a defeat, but no name 89/99. Magic points 1/10. Total combat power 5/11. Wasn't the death penalty only supposed to be a 10% reduction in stats? I sighed. My first VRMMO battle ended in disaster. Currently, I was hiding inside a hollow tree trunk somewhere in the pitch-black forest, waiting for my magic to recover. No name infant demon 83/99. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points 7/10. Total combat power 9/11. Unique skill, reroll. I'd heard that when players die, they lose 10% of their stats, but then why did I lose a whole half of mine? Was it just how it worked for monsters? Or was it just for spiritual life forms like me? Damn it, I had no idea. Could it possibly be that spiritual life forms were incredibly weak? At least my magic recovered time. I had just a single magic point when I respawned. At the time, I seriously thought there was no way to progress any further. My body shrank due to losing half my magic, which allowed me to hide within a hollow tree. What should I do now? If I immediately died again, my character would probably be deleted, right? The AI said my inventory would be dropped at my point of death, but this identification crystal still stayed with me. I wasn't sure why. Perhaps it was because the crystal was a basic item for new players, or perhaps because I kept it inside my body. Anyway, thank God for that. There had been a few discoveries while I was holing up in this tree. My magic recovered by 1 approximately each hour. I didn't know if this was a flat increase of 1, or if it was a 10% recovery, since my current maximum magic was exactly 10. The things I could do would be different, depending on which it was. After using identification on a few wild animals passing by my tree, I found out something. If I lost all my magic power, it's for me, but when normal animals' magic points dropped to 0, they just fainted. They only died when their hit points dropped to 0. Is this normal? Next, when normal animals lost some magic points, their combat power still stayed the same. However, their magic points would drop bit by bit when in combat. I didn't know whether it was because they used magic to attack, because combat itself took magic power, or because they strengthened themselves magically. I saw a snake attacking a squirrel. When the squirrel died, the snake sucked up some kind of mist from its corpse. I could see pretty well despite the darkness. Was it just how the game was, or was it because I was a monster? And finally, there was a drone beetle. It approached me, thinking I was some kind of tree sap, and I killed it, but I didn't get any stronger. At any rate, I needed to find a way to fight. Judging from appearances, the only things weaker than that caterpillar that I could find were the snakes, the field mice, and the squirrels, which meant that the caterpillar was the weakest monster in this forest. And right now, I was much weaker than it. Just using my unique skill, reroll, to make the caterpillar miss already ate up around 10 of my magic power, so it wasn't practical at the moment. But there was one good thing that came from that mess. All that desperate running around helped me get used to this body, and the nausea was much more tolerable now. Not much of a silver lining, really. Anyway, my next goal was to get strong enough to kill a squirrel. There should be a way to leverage my doughiness, I thought, which resulted in my current attempt to ambush a squirrel from above a tree. I dropped and covered it with my whole body. At first, the squirrel violently resisted. It suffocated and stopped moving after a while, and I absorbed some kind of mist from it. I didn't feel anything different. No name infant demon 8299. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points, 10 over 10. Total combat power, 11 over 11. Unique skill, reroll. Yup, nothing changed. And the corpse was still here. What do I do with it? Do I eat it? How? I wasn't going to melt it down like normal slimes. Even my own doughy body looked far tastier. Well, I couldn't do anything about it, so I just left it there. Was this really fine, though? I only had my theoretical knowledge. It wasn't like I'd ever played a game before. Since then, I killed another 2 mice with the same method. Finally, something changed. No name 7999th. Magic points, 10 11th plus 1. Total combat power, 11 12th plus 1. Both my magic power and combat power rose by 1. It was just a single point, but it did increase. It made me happy, true, but mostly I just felt relieved. Another snake showed up, attracted by the corpse. It looked like my body had some pretty sharp senses. I managed to learn how to detect presences now, somehow. I swiftly and carefully snuck my way up the tree, back to my old ambush spot. The snake still hadn't noticed me. My handling of my body had gotten much better. I was probably as fast as that caterpillar now. Not exactly an impressive achievement, I know. The feeling of being an indistinct mass still made me nauseous, but little by little, it had gotten better. Tolerable, now. I hid myself on the tree and looked down. The 1-meter-long snake slithered toward the mouse I killed. Oh, wait, another snake showed up. The two began to intimidate each other over the meal. Snake 7899. Magic points. 5 over 5 hit points, 15 over 15. Total combat power, 15. Snakes were weak. Still stronger than me and squirrels, though. Also, identification crystal. You didn't even put any thought into naming them, did you? They hissed. Can you two please do this somewhere else? You're messing up my plans here. I could just not peep and go elsewhere, but I was afraid I'd accidentally run across another snake or caterpillar in the process. Both of them were about the same strength. Perhaps that was why none of them were willing to back off and miss out on a fresh meal. They began fighting. Both of them twisted, turned, and generally just tried to constrict the other. The fight looked really boring. After some time, one of them finally landed a bite on the other's neck. Yup, boring. It kept biting for a while, then won the fight just like that. Again, the winner absorbed the mist-like thing from the loser. Snake 7799th. Magic points. 3/6 hit points, 8/16 Total combat power, 16 Oh, its stats went up a bit. Was this a level up kind of thing, as I suspected? The winning snake was hesitating between the mouse and its newly killed meal. Whoops, it saw me. Fine, then. Preemptive self-defense. I jumped down from the branch and wrapped myself all around the snake. It shrieked something fierce. Oh crap, it's big. At the moment I only had enough volume to fill a bowl, so I couldn't completely cover the snake. It retaliated by constricting me, but failed due to my sloppy, doughy body. And then I felt the snake suddenly heat up. Without warning, it chomped at me in a burst of newly discovered strength. That hurt quite a bit. Snake 7699. Magic points, 2/6 hit points, 8/16. Total combat power, 16. The snake's magic power dropped. So it's true, then, that you needed magic to strengthen yourself. No name 7599th. Magic points, 8/11. Total combat power, 10/12. Hey, I just got my magic back up again. You damn reptile. In my anger, I started to flail about. From my doughy body came whips to bash, to kick, to punch, and generally just throwing a tantrum right on the snake. I didn't even know what I was doing. The snake's body cooled down, perhaps running out of magic. Then a few of my tentacles hit its head, but they were deflected. Really? The snake gave a few twitches, which stopped after I covered its head and squeezed. My body sucked in the mist from the corpse. I won. No name infant demon 7499th. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points, 8/13 Total combat power, 10/14 Unique skill, reroll. So, I got stronger when I won and absorbed the mist. Was that mist the snake's magic? Vitality. I guess I'll just call it life force. My guess, it had been a lot of guessing and hypothesizing, hadn't it? Was that for monsters and animals that had physical body? Their total combat power enumerated the power they had only when they strengthened themselves with magic, while spiritual life forms like me always fought with 100% of my total combat power. I had always thought spiritual life forms to be weak, but if this hypothesis proved true, I needn't be. Hopefully. Also, please let me learn identification already. I continued killing squirrels and snakes for quite some time. Just 2 days, actually. Anyway, here was the results. No name infant demon 62 out of 99. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points, 26 out of 26, plus 13. Total combat power, 30 out of 30, plus 16. Unique skill, reroll. Now I could take vengeance upon the dreaded caterpillar. Probably. Well, I needed to get strong enough to win against the caterpillars anyway. I wouldn't be able to leave the forest otherwise. I could use reroll twice now, but its usefulness was still very much in doubt. The ability to retry after a failure sounded amazing at first, but the only success I'd had with this skill was the time I forced the caterpillar to miss its biting attack. Furthermore, when rerolling, there was still the possibility that I'd fail again. Also, the skill used the specific words required magic power, which probably meant that the more powerful the attack I used it on, the more magic it's going to take. 10 magic points was just for dodging the caterpillar's bite. And finally, I was a spiritual life form. My combat ability would drop like a rock if my magic went low, so I supposed my unique skill would have to stay unused for the time being. Perhaps it could be a trump card. There were a few new discoveries. Total combat power of monsters and creatures which had hit points didn't drop when they lost magic power, but did when they lost a large amount of hit points. Such creatures normally didn't look very powerful. Only when they entered combat and spent magic would they exert power equivalent to their total combat power. In contrast, spiritual life forms like me didn't have hit points because our magic was our life force itself. Both my magic and total combat power would drop upon receiving damage. In return, magic points regenerated faster over time than hit points, and I could always attack with the full power of my total combat power without spending magic. Spiritual life forms weren't actually that weak. Still, I couldn't help but felt it unfair. Also, there were still no signs I'd come any closer to learning identification. That was my situation. For the time being, I planned on continuing to gain as much strength as I could. Currently, for a flawless victory against the snakes, I would need to attack from ambush. I'd like to get strong enough to win without a scratch in a head-on fight, at least. I moved through the forest, slowly enough to not get dizzy, while wondering if there was any convenient prey nearby. Then, I spotted a presence some distance away. I focused my 360 degrees full-screen vision upon that direction. Ah, that's a red caterpillar. The woods gave way to a small clearing of sunlight and flowers. There the caterpillar lay, chewing on a few petals. Red caterpillar 61 out of 99. Magic points, 28 out of 28 minus 3. Hit points, 37 out of 37 plus 7. Total combat power, 35 plus 8. Surprisingly powerful. Wait, it had a scar on its back. Could it be the same red caterpillar that killed me the first time? It had a darker shade now, though. I see. It killed me to level up, didn't it? What should I do? It was stronger than me, so I didn't really want to fight it. Since my death, I had already regained my strength and then some. Another death penalty would hurt a ton. Yet at the same time, I wasn't sure if I would ever have the chance to meet the same caterpillar again, in the same forest. I still remembered very clearly the pain of having my body shaved away, bit by bit. If possible, I wanted my revenge. Both of us had gotten stronger since then, but I also learned how to move my body and how to fight. A straight fight wouldn't be easy. I might be able to win with an ambush if I do it right. My chances weren't zero. Its combat power was only 20% higher. A strong first hit from ambush should give me the advantage. And finally, I was the faster one now. I could just run away if the fight turned out bad. I made my decision and climbed up a nearby tree. From branch to branch I moved, approaching my target. The red caterpillar was right in the center of a flower bed, which had no trees growing, but the clearing was only 5 meters large. I should be able to reach it by jumping from a protruding branch. Wriggling, oozing, following the branches. I'd gotten used to the way this body moves, but that nauseous feeling of disconnect was still there. I took aim, and, now, I flew from the branch. As I dropped down right on top of the red caterpillar, I stretched out a whip of dough and slammed on its back. It shrieked and jumped in pain. Got you. Red caterpillar 60 out of 99. Magic points, 28 out of 28. Hit points, 27 out of 37. Total combat power, 33 minus 2. Good, that's 30% gone. Not only that, it looked like I hit it right in its old wound and ripped it open, which staggered it and somewhat reduced its combat power. At this point, we were equal in power. With my superior speed, I held the advantage, if only slightly. I landed, splattering myself on the flower bed. It looked at me and finally realized it was under attack. The red caterpillar roared in rage, its body turning a darker shade. Wait, that's not the normal screech it usually did. And then I heard the answering shrieks. Around the flower bed arrived 3 more red caterpillars. Really? Red caterpillar times 3, 57 out of 99. Magic points, 20 out of 20. Hit points, 25 out of 25. Total combat power, 22. Were they minions? Subordinates? A harem? I once heard that in insects, the females are generally bigger, so was this a reverse harem? Damn bitch, you've let power gone to your head. They were smaller and weaker than the first dark red now, caterpillar I encountered, but still much stronger than the snakes. The plan had failed. Time to run. 4 caterpillars in 4 directions, all coming for me. I jumped towards the one opposite the dark red. It screamed, raising its head like a snake and spat acid. I dodged, flying like a butterfly. If butterflies didn't have wings and were made of soggy clay, anyway. My tentacles smashed into its head. Oh, it hurt a bit. Did I hit its fang? Was there still acid left? Anyway, I should try to avoid attacking the face from now on. It started to squirm and writhe, seemingly in a great amount of pain from my counterattack. Hey, squirm somewhere else, would you? You're blocking my escape path. Meanwhile, the other 3 had caught up. A screech accompanied another projectile. Wait, fire. Fire, not acid. That dark red caterpillar just spat fire at me. Impressive range, too. The fire mercilessly burned both me and the red caterpillar. Such cruelty. No name 56 out of 99. Magic points, 22 out of 26. Total combat power, 26 out of 30. Oh man, that was a lot of points gone. I couldn't let this hit me again. The well-cooked red caterpillar restarted its spasms. Smelled delicious. Meanwhile, another red caterpillar had caught up to me. Seemed like the smaller red caterpillars were faster than the dark red one. It chomped at me. I only barely managed to turn it into a glancing blow and counterattacked. No name 55 out of 99. Magic points, 20 out of 26. Total combat power, 24 out of 30. I was going to get bogged down at this rate. The last red caterpillar hadn't come any closer, seemingly the careful type, while the dark red spat fire once again. The bug I was fighting attempted another bite, caring not one whit for the approaching mass of flame. I moved, putting it between me and the projectile, and then fire covered the both of us. Reroll. All the fire around me suddenly moved to light up the red caterpillar, while I was unharmed. Thank God it worked. No name 55 out of 99. Magic points 10 out of 26. Total combat power 15 out of 30. And there was the expected crash in magic points and combat power. The damage might have been lower if I just let the projectile hit me, true, but that was part of the plan. The caterpillar was near death now. All-out attack. These bugs did seem to be quite soft, comparatively. After hitting the doubly cooked red caterpillar a few times, the mist was released. No name 54 out of 99. Magic points 16 out of 33 plus 7. Total combat power 21 out of 38 plus 8. That was a good boost of power. Plus, my spent magic was replenished, if only a little bit. Seeing its fallen comrade, the dark red caterpillar howled. Now even the careful caterpillar was joining the fight, seemingly scared of the wife's anger. It circled around and spat acid at me. That was pretty smart for a caterpillar. For a moment, I wondered if it was one of the other secret alpha testers, but despite the intelligence, it wasn't human smart. I moved between the two bugs and squished myself down. Both of them spat out their respective projectiles at the same time, which only whiffed right above me and went on to hit each other. The dark red lost itself in its howling rage and changed target to the acid spitter. I took the chance to finish off the very first burn victim of the dark red. No name 53 out of 99. Magic points 22 out of 40 plus 7. Total combat power 28 out of 45 plus 7. I finally came close to the strength I first had at the beginning of this battle. The dark red screeched, attracting my attention. It just bit the acid spitter to death. Ah well, what a waste. Dark red caterpillar 52 out of 99. Magic points 10 out of 33 plus 5 hit points 24 out of 42 plus 5. Total combat power 38 plus 5. And that one got quite a bit stronger too, but as I expected, it didn't regain any lost life. Low magic power too. That fire projectile attack must have been expensive. Also, it turned out that the identified names weren't the actual, official names. They changed according to my perception. It still had higher combat power than me, but I'd come this far. I wouldn't run. I provoked it with a hop and once again it spat fire, still ruled by anger. Now, there were no longer any obstacle to take the hit for me, so reroll would surely be a lot more expensive than last time. And it was probably going to fail again anyway, so I didn't even try to dodge. It burned. It hurt so much I would have cried if I still had my tear ducts, but I rushed forward anyway and started a melee fight head-on. 3 minutes since the brawl began, the dark red caterpillar suddenly weakened, its hits no longer hurting me as much. Just as I expected. Dark red caterpillar 51 out of 99. Magic points 1 out of 33 hit points, 16 out of 42. Total combat power 38. 0 magic points would leave it unconscious, so if it couldn't use any magic, it wouldn't be able to access its full strength. Just a big caterpillar, nothing more. The scuffle went on for some time, and finally the dark red went down. My victory was rewarded with the familiar mist. No name infant demon 48 out of 99. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points 17 out of 55 plus 15. Total combat power 25 out of 60 plus 15. Unique skill reroll. Evolution available. Nice, I got a lot more powerful. Caterpillars no longer posed a threat. Evolution. Secret alpha tester number 78. Time elapsed 71 hours. Delirium, leading to mental collapse. As per procedure, subject will be forced to log out and move to the collection room. Here, at the 7th research center of a certain conglomerate, 100 so-called secret alpha tester human subjects were undergoing an experiment within the MMORPG world of Yggdrasia. Over 50 staff members were monitoring them 24/7, with 10 persons each shift. After the staff members' announcement, the collecting process began in another facility. Subject number 78 was thawed and released from the VR capsule. The medical staff carried the kid away in indifference. Brian, the deputy director of this particular research center, watched the process through a monitor. He sighed and clicked a few buttons. So how many does this make? Including number 78. We have had 8 people logging out due to mental collapse. Another 2 died from their minds weakening. His secretary, a gorgeous woman nearing her 30s, answered stoically. The mental strain of using a different VR avatar from one's real body first became a problem several years ago, and it had only gotten worse with the advance in VR technology. Increasing realism went hand in hand with an increasing number of reported mental instability. As present, there were only 3 solutions. First was to simply lower the sensitivity of the VR system. This was not practical due to how indispensable VR had made itself in so many aspects of society, not to speak of the user's ever-increasing demand for realism. Second, to get used to the experience with the help of drugs and medical supervision. However, the user still needed to train for a long period of time, and success was not guaranteed. This solution also caused several other problems such as possible drug addiction and difficulty in returning to society, and thus was also impractical to implement. Third, to minimize the differences between the user and their avatar. This was the simplest, problem-free solution, and so became the standard choice. The 7th Center's focus was on exploring the effect of non-human avatar use on the human mind. For this purpose, the center had acquired orphans within the age of 10 to 15 for their still flexible minds, and the fact that they had no relatives. These kids had had their records legally deleted from the system. Upon the conclusion of this experiment, they would have their livelihood guaranteed for 10 years and new identities made. Monster avatars, with their unnatural powers and movement, took quite some time to make, which delayed the project. In the end, the secret alpha testers began their experiment at the same time the official beta testers joined the game. Depending on the results, this experiment could be a large step forward for the medical field. So, 10% dropped out after just 70 hours. Sir, I believe the cause might be the lack of sleep. At maximum, VR sensitivity even surpassed real life, which put so much stress on their minds that they couldn't rest. Should we lower it? That'd be putting the cart before the horse. If sensitivity is low, we might as well be using remote-controlled drones or AI tanks. As weapons, they'd be useless. Brian snorted. He looked at the large monitor showing the mental states of the 100 test subjects, updated in real time. Dead, 2 subjects. Logged out due to mental collapse, 8 subjects. Delirious, 12 subjects. Gone berserk due to loss of rationality, 11 subjects. Mentally unstable, 37 subjects. Light mental instability, 30 subjects. Sir, I've just received a report. A berserk alpha tester had made contact with a few beta testers, then defeated after a fight broke out. Which one? Excuse me. It was the alpha tester who started as a goblin and advanced into a hobgoblin. The beta testers who defeated them was a party of 4, but they also suffered 1 casualty. I see. As foreseen, the closer to human the avatar, the faster their evolution. So how many subjects have reached evolution? 27. Among them, 1 had died and 4 more have had a mental collapse, so currently 22 are still logged in. However, over half of them are extremely unstable. Some of them are delirious or have gone berserk. Yes, increased stress due to a sudden change of form. Worst case scenario, we may need to look into injecting a few of them. 6 subjects have achieved evolution with only light mental instability. Furthermore, subject number 13 have unlocked evolution while relatively stable. Number 13, Brian muttered. Answering him, the screen showed the sight of a snow-white girl, her red pupils shooting daggers at the camera. Brian remembered her. Understanding dawned on his face, and he nodded. Ah, right, the demon child. No name, infant demon. 47 out of 99. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points, 1 out of 55, plus 15. Total combat power, 25 out of 60, plus 15. Unique skill, reroll. Evolution available. Evolution available. Right, the explanation did include this. Once a monster player raised their levels enough, they can evolve into another type of monster within the same evolution tree. Anyway, I needed more details. I focused my thoughts on the evolution available part, and more text appeared. Available evolutions from Infant Demon 46 out of 99. Displaying current choices. Imp, Shadow, Gremlin, Ghast. There were quite a few choices. I'd have to check them out one by one. My crystal only had half its uses left, yet I still hadn't learned the skill. Worrying was just futile, I know, but I couldn't help myself. Imp 45 out of 99. A tiny, hideous demon. Lives in people's houses and loves to play pranks. That explanation was much too short. It didn't even say anything about the next evolutions. So useless. Whatever. Might as well finish off the rest. Shadow 44 out of 99. A demon of shadows. Takes over the place of a living being's shadow. Disturbs the mind of the possessed. Gremlin 43 out of 99. A type of evil fairy. Possesses inventions of man and interferes with operation. Ghast 42 out of 99. A gaseous demon. Formed from a collection of black dust and soot. Can transform into many different shapes. I guess if I wanted a typical demon, I should go the imp path. but it's ugly. I didn't know how powerful they could get, but the size didn't assure me. I was slightly partial to the shadow. If they could possess human shadows, then they might be able to enter human villages. But what if I turned white again after my evolution? Gremlins also seem to be a straightforward choice, but what exactly are inventions? Could I possess an airship and drop it? This had the potential for mass murder, but would I have to attack humans? Ghasts were the most mysterious one. What do I do with the ability to change shapes? All of them had their pros and cons. None of them seemed to be useful in a straight fight. What should I do? Anyway, it looked like I couldn't evolve if my magic wasn't full, so for the time being, it was time to rest. I decided to laze about in the clearing to calm myself down. All this time, this sense of disconnect had been putting my mind off balance. Maybe I could watch the flowers. You could say I was just escaping from reality, but, well, I'm a very experienced escapist. Really, I wish those corporation people would just lower the sensitivity already. My mind wandered until it landed on the caterpillar corpses. They were seriously cramping my style. Here, could I use them for something? They did have those fangs that no bugs should ever have. Maybe I could rip them out and sell them in a town, somewhere. A monster selling monster materials. I'd be turning a lot of heads. Well, I had some free time, might as well try. I approached the dark red. Up close, the huge corpse looked a lot more grotesque than I thought. I wasn't really in the mood to carefully dismantle it, so I just stretched out a gooey tentacle to start pounding. It wasn't so much dismantling as pulverizing, which still worked. I got one out of the pair of fangs. It looked quite sturdy. Also, the other fang broke. I didn't want to look at this aftermath of a splatter movie, but I couldn't close my eyes, which might have been for the better, since otherwise I wouldn't have noticed the twinkling object inside the corpse. What was this thing? A gem. It was the size of a bean and colored black, which made it look more like a really nice piece of coal rather than a gem. I tried poking it, and suddenly it disappeared inside my body. What happened? Where did it go? I searched everywhere in my body but found nothing. Instead, I noticed my depleted magic power recovering at a far faster rate. What was that? A magic-emitting rock. Well, if it could recover my magic, then all the more convenient. I looked for stones inside the other 3 red caterpillar corpses too, but smashing them open revealed nothing. Questions after questions. Did these stones only form inside strong monsters? Perhaps that was the magic stone I was told about. Well, no matter. Thanks to the stone, I only took an hour to recover all my magic power. Hey, Dark Red. I'm not going to say I was grateful for the fight, but it wasn't meaningless. No name. Infant Demon 41 out of 99. A nameless infant demon. A spiritual life form. Extremely fragile. Magic points. 55 out of 55. Total combat power. 60 out of 60. Unique skill. Reroll. Evolution available. Indeed, it wasn't meaningless at all. Thus, I made my decision. Likely as not, there'd be more difficulties ahead of me no matter which path I choose. My worn-out soul might just be in tatters by the end, yet still, I didn't want everything I had done to be meaningless. And so, I gave form to my desire in my mind and made a wish with all my heart. I decided on the Ghast, the immaterial, malleable demon of dust and gases. It wouldn't be much different from the body of wet dough I'd been using. Imps and gremlins, with their hands and legs, would have been much better for my mind. I was sure of that, but no. I didn't want all my experience to count for nothing. Well, I just wanted to say something cool there. My life was going to be shitty no matter the choice anyway, so I didn't put all that much thought to it. Following my wish, my snow-white slime body began to break shit. This is bad. I could feel myself being arranged into something different, and apparently my brain didn't like that very much. My vision widened out. I felt myself thrown into a raging whirlpool, twisting and turning in incomprehensible directions. Nausea and dizziness began to lay siege, without mercy. Head-splitting pain. An infinite number of ants swarming. No, this wasn't real. I didn't have a physical body at the moment. This was nothing more than a delusion cooked up by my mind. I knew that, but fucking idiot brain. Come on, stay awake. Oh boy, it took a whole day for my evolution to finish. I seriously thought my non-existent head was going to explode. Well, to be more precise, the evolution itself probably only took a few minutes, but after it was done I couldn't move for all of a day. I only just managed to start thinking human thoughts again an hour ago. Until then, my world was made of headaches, flashing colors in my eyes, and so much nausea that I couldn't move a millimeter. I still couldn't, even now. My new body's senses were all out of whack. No name race, Ghast low demon low rank 33 out of 99. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 90 out of 90. Plus 35. Total combat power, 100 out of 100. Plus 40. Unique skill, reroll. Gassed. A low demon of dust and gases. See this dust and gases part? That was the problem. My senses extended to every single particles that made up my body. What this meant was that every time the wind blew, armies of ants would start having a party on the parts of my body moved by the breeze. Such a pain. I'd been trying my best to ignore the whole thing, but on second thought, that might not have been the best idea. If I tried to get used to this body by ignoring the problem, that would mean discarding the advantage of using a monster avatar in the first place. Instead, I should turn the problem into a solution, make my hypersensitivity work for me rather than against me. That was the strength of monsters, and also what separated them from humans. At the same time, I had the strangest feeling, as if I was slowly losing bits and pieces of my own human vulnerability from all the abuse my mind had suffered since I started using this monster avatar. Was weakness not what make humans so beautiful in the end? Alright, that was enough monologuing. I got so much more powerful now, I should try to get moving as soon as possible. That reminded me, my status showed low demon low rank. That's too low in a row. How weak was the pre-evolution ball of dough, then? I was lucky that no caterpillars or snakes came by when I was still immobile. There was a squirrel, but it ran the moment it found out I was here. My first priority would be to learn how to use my senses. For the first time, I opened my eyes and truly looked at what was happening with my body. Immediately, a torrent of information slammed into me. Head hurt. Too much useless information. I didn't need to know how many blades of grass or grains of sand I was touching, or how much dust was blowing in the wind. I just realized how reliant on sight and hearing humans were, despite having 5 senses. Anyway, I should try to selectively process only the relevant information. Hopefully my subconscious could handle the task for me if I practice enough. If not, well, I'd probably go insane, so I couldn't slack off here. Which meant I'd need to train my brain to get used to this amount of information as its new default state. Oh boy, I wasn't looking forward to returning to reality after this. It's going to be a hell of a time getting used to the lack of information again. Let's do this bit by bit, then. This sort of training was never meant to be completed in a day or two. Meanwhile, I should try to move. I suppose this body should handle the same way as the doughy one. It was the reason why I picked the ghast, after all. I was going to facepalm so hard otherwise. I just floated. I see, so gas could float. Well, not surprising, actually. They were made of gases. On one hand, this afforded me so many new possibilities. On the other, stomach-churning nausea, again. Blurg. My vision hadn't stopped turning since a while now, most likely due to my body constantly being moved by the air currents, and it had continued to do so as long as I wasn't being aware. So I focused my consciousness and forced my body to stay still. Finally, I could see myself. I looked like a 1-meter sphere of incredibly thick smoke. Not exactly outside my expectations, but why was I white again? The game reproduced my albinism in the weirdest ways. Please stop it already. Right. You know what happens when you pour water on dry ice. I drifted forward. Hey, this worked. Felt like I was bungee jumping every time I moved, which was scary, but I could move the same way I did when I was still a slime. I couldn't rise too much, though. There was some kind of force pulling me down, and its strength was proportional to my distance from the ground. It was difficult to get any higher than the height of the windows of a 2-story building. So that was my vertical limits. Horizontally, I could move as fast as a person walking, or race walking if I pushed myself. Faster than Domi, obviously. You'd think I would go I can fly. But no, my perception was much too sensitive for that. Bugs were crawling on my skin every time the winds touched me. Nothing was fun about this. Really, could I ever get used to this? For the time being, I elected to process enough information for my senses to be slightly better than a normal person's. Particularly my sense of smell and presence detection. For those, I tried to be as aware of the unconscious goings-on as possible. Found a red caterpillar. It looked small, so probably a male. I silently drove my body of gas closer and prepared to attack. I could just attack the same way I'd been doing, right? I thrusted a part of me forward. There was no impact. The tentacle of air simply covered the caterpillar and sucked it dry in a few seconds. Holy crap. I couldn't believe this was the same caterpillar I used to have so much trouble with. I just won in a flash. Gruesomely, too. No name race. Ghast low demon, low rank, 30 out of 99. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 91 out of 91. Plus 1. Total combat power, 101 out of 101. Plus 1. Unique skill, reroll. Apparently I also drained its life force with that attack. Well, that was good and all, but it didn't give me much. Could be because of my evolution. Setting the dark reds aside for a moment, but the red ones used to give me around 7 points. That's it, then. I might be outgrowing this area. It had been my plan to leave the forest once I got stronger, anyway. Still, if I saw any, I'd hunt. Points were important, even if just one. Another 10 more reds hunted after a day of journey. I'd gotten a lot more used to moving myself. Filtering information was still difficult. This forest was huge. I'd never seen anything other than trees the whole time. I'm not actually going deeper, am I? That wasn't to say coming across a human village wouldn't be a problem, however. Oh, I detected something. A stronger presence than most. What was it? Where was it? I stayed on guard for a while, but saw nothing, so I decided to hover forward. There it was, behind a large tree. Maybe I just imagined it, but I thought our eyes met. As much as I could have eyes. It was a black caterpillar, around 60 centimeters, and twice as large as a red one. Whoa, it just screeched and spat out fire without warning. From all the way over there, too. Black caterpillar 29 out of 99. Magic points, 39 out of 45 hit points, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 75. Quite a bit more powerful than reddies. Was this the next evolution step of the dark red? Why caterpillars? Get to butterflies already. Wait, what are you doing spitting fire in a forest? Damn it, I couldn't afford to stay defensive fighting a high-power monster. All-out offense. I circled around the big tree to strike from its back. It spat flame at me once, but I still continued. A part of me stretched out and enveloped the bug. By the way, I did a reroll to dodge the flame, but it failed. Like always, just as I thought, that wasn't enough volume to do any meaningful damage. I went for broke and rushed at the black caterpillar, using my whole body to cover it. It resisted violently, trying to bite me. Didn't hurt much, just felt like a mosquito bite. Right, my gaseous gassed body. Fire worked. But maybe I was nearly invincible to physical attacks. I worked to absorb as much of its life as possible before the bug could hurl flame again. In the end, it was just a caterpillar. It never attempted anything other than biting. Finally, it wailed, breathing its last. So I won because I was smarter than a caterpillar. Amazing. No name race, gassed low demon, low rank 28 out of 99. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 94 out of 108, plus 17. Total combat power, 103 out of 119, plus 18. Unique skill, reroll. That was a lot of points. I got 10 points from the reds on my way here, so one black caterpillar was 7 points. I could make use of these bugs. The best thing was that they didn't have any way to hurt me besides the flame. So, blacks were relatively safe to kill and gave me a good amount of points, which meant I could settle down here for a while. That was before I found out that there were way too few blacks compared to the number of reds. In hindsight, it should have been obvious. Monsters had more magic and life force than normal animals. To grow stronger efficiently, monsters would have to fight one another. So the higher on the pyramid, the less of them existed. Oh well, I just have to be patient and search. I also got used to handling myself a bit better now, so it was time to try to see how far away I could detect presences. I rose almost to my height limit, despite the warning signals telling me to get back down now, spreading myself as wide as I could to let my detection sense do its work. Normally, my range was around a basketball court. This time, I expanded my perception, only checking for magic and the general sizes of the presences themselves. The details were ignored. The more useless information I took in, the worse the stress on my brain, setting me on edge and lowering my accuracy. Alright, focus. Range at baseball field size. Now. Yeah, still nothing. Maybe a bit further. I sensed. Oh crap, this is bad. My consciousness. I forced my body and mind back together the moment they were about to scatter and evaporate. Too close. What were the developers thinking? They didn't even implement any sort of limits or safety checks for avatars. I'm pretty sure I was just about to become a vegetable right there if I didn't stop in time. That scared the crap out of me. Let's be more careful from now on. At the same time, if I hadn't forced myself so, I wouldn't have found that strange presence. They were a long way away from me. The presence only had about half my magic, yet felt strangely powerful. And bizarre. They were killing what I suspected to be black caterpillars, one after another. Might the presence be a human? If they were killing monsters, then perhaps. A beta tester. Fuck yes. A grinding place just for me. Compared to most other mobs early game, the black caterpillars were particularly dangerous due to their fire spitting. On the other hand, their soft shells made them relatively easy to kill. A young man guffawed in a forest, his sword cutting swaths through his enemies. His name was John Yamada. It sounded like a nickname you'd use in an MMO, but sadly, that was his real name. A Japanese-American university student, he was one of the chosen beta testers. Unluckily, his professors called him to resubmit a paper, and so his first login was one whole day after the beta started. In his panic, he created a character using his real name and face. Yamada didn't actually mind it that much, since a lot of popular streamers were doing the same thing for their channels. To make up for the lost time, he searched for good mobs to kill, which led him to the information about the black caterpillars on the game forum. In World of Yggdrasia, time passed at about the same rate as real life. At first glance, the problem wherein some players could only log in at night due to their life situation seemed unavoidable. But thankfully Yggdrasia was as large as Earth, which meant time zones. Players could choose to start in the area with the time zone they wanted. Yamada chose the country with the same time zone as his real-life residence. A large country situated to the west of the central continent, the Sea's Kingdom. When he began the game, what surprised him first and foremost was how detailed the game was. It reminded him of the first time he used the avatar system to sightsee another country, and the immersion he felt back then. The game was so real, he couldn't help but think this world might actually exist. First was the town. Yamada logged in at the temple in Sea's capital city, then following the tutorial, went to register himself at the Adventurers Guild. The amount of people he saw on the way was astonishing. In normal open-world games, even so-called metropolises only had at most a few hundred citizens to save on computing power. Yet here, just the main street he was standing in already had more people than that walking around. At first Yamada thought the game simply had a few thousands players logging into the same city, like some other famous MMORPGs, but then he found out they were all NPCs. This living, breathing city was populated with AI-driven non-playable characters. He should have guessed, really. All 10,000 beta testers from throughout the whole real world couldn't have been dropped into a single country in-game. To determine how sophisticated the AI-driven NPCs, he watched a street stall for a long while. And the owner actually began to scowl at him. The wind on his skin, the pavement under his feet, the mouth-watering smell from a stall selling skewers of grilled meat. All these were indistinguishable from reality. The sense of smell was replicated, but the sense of taste only worked for drinks. Avatars had no need for food. The human controller would still need to log out and eat normally. As a player, Yamada was provided a lump of some sort of sweet food by the temple. It resembled nutritional energy bars and granted a buff when eaten. But those didn't dampen his dream to try out the street food here, even if just once, and even when he knew the sense of taste wouldn't work. To that end, he headed to the Adventurers Guild for his first job. But the food wasn't the only reason Yamada was trying to earn money. This game was realism-oriented. Unlike most other MMORPGs, you didn't have an inventory box. You had to carry all your items by yourself. From what he'd heard, only some quest items could be stored inside your character. All other items took up actual space. If you had too many, you either used the temple's storage service or made a base somewhere. However, what Yamada was most interested were the slaves. He was disappointed at first to see that only humans were playable as a race. Turned out that apparently in World of Yggdrasia, all demi-humans were slaves. If you had a somewhere to live and enough money, you could buy slaves in cities or go capture the demi-humans living in the forest. They could do housework, fight, carry your burden, or serve in other ways. Slavery unnerved him a little bit at first, but all the townspeople were working the demi-humans without batting an eye. The slaves were dressed cleanly enough, too, perhaps since they had to work in a city. Yamada decided to stop worrying about the matter. Then he saw the back streets. He saw actual elves and beastmen slaves doing menial work. He saw the cute but somber girls, no one cracking a smile, and he decided his dream right there and then. He would earn enough to have a huge mansion. Then he would swoop in to save the demi-human girls from their poor fates, and they would live together happily ever after. Thus he vowed, to his own wretched heart. This game's growth system was weird. There were no levels like normal RPGs, no classes or jobs, either. Everyone were adventurers. Players decided on their playstyle by acquiring and leveling skills the way they wanted, with 10 being the maximum level. John Yamada race, human male, adventurer. Magic points, 40 out of 40. Hit points, 60 out of 60. Strength, 10. Vitality, 10. Agility, 10. Dexterity, 10. Swordsmanship, 1. Defense, 1. Defensive magic, 1. Healing magic, 1. Self-reinforcement. Total combat power, 40. Magic, flame, healing. All he had were his starting skills, magic, and basic equipment. An iron one-handed sword, a set of soft leather armor, a set of traveler's clothes, and an adventurer's backpack. If he died, he'd lose half of his magic points, suffer a 10% reduction of stats, and drop all his luggage on the ground as the death penalty. However, he had heard that his starting equipment and some quest reward items wouldn't drop, so Yamato went outside town without a worry. The way combat and gaining experience worked were also somewhat strange. To prevent any mishaps in normal life, adventurers' bodies were no different from normal people. This only changed when they entered combat. Physical combat skills and self-reinforcement were activated by the use of magic. 1 MP was spent every minute for each level of combat skill. That meant Yamato could only fight for 40 minutes maximum. However, magic recovered by 10% each hour, and each monster killed granted you increased maximum magic points and hit points as a form of experience. You also absorbed a part of the dead monster's magic to recover your own. Yamato, despite having only his starting stats, didn't actually have that much trouble hunting outside town. The nimble wolves were a bit difficult at first, but as long as he had a weapon, wild animals were easy enough to kill, as long as they came from the forest near the road leading out of town. But the beginning mobs didn't offer much rewards in terms of both experience and money. The first wolf he killed was grotesquely real, too. He would have retched if the game didn't automatically censor the gory mess. He brought a few rabbits he hunted to the Adventurers Guild to sell. They complained. Damaged hides, no bloodletting after the kill, and haggled the price all the way down to just 5 bronze coins, about $5 for each rabbit. He tried out a skewer of meat from a stall and vomited from the taste of paper clay, all the while cursing the developers for their overcommitment to realism. Yamato logged out. He searched for information on the VR message board, then went back in-game and headed to the wilds, away from the capital city. This was an Earth-sized open-world game. Even his chosen starting country, Sea's Kingdom, was as large as one of the bigger European countries. It'd take days traveling on foot. With what little money he had left, Yamato bought a ticket for a Magitech train, one of the methods of transportation available, and also one of the game's selling points. No coal or water powered this train, only plenty of magic. To help alleviate the boredom during the ride, the game allowed players who bought a private room to either log out or browse a version of the game forum dedicated to people wanting access from in-game. In case you were still logged out when the train arrived at your station, the game would send you a notification on your phone. If you were still unavailable, your next login would put you in the nearest temple. The ride went quickly. It was a few hours later when Yamato arrived at a rural village, somewhere in the wilds of Sea's Kingdom. Sipping on some fruit juice, the first decent thing to enter his mouth ever since he started the game, he asked a few villagers for the whereabouts of monsters. According to them, there are only wolves, rabbits, and other such wild animals near the village, but he could find some black caterpillars about an hour's walk into the forest. This was the mob the game forum told him about. Incidentally, he did try to talk to a cat-eared demi-human slave along the way. She was terrified. That took the wind out of his sails. Yamato bought a cheap cloak at the village's second-hand store for appearance's sake. He headed to the depths of the forest without a single worry, his body never tiring due to being a VR avatar. Yamato was the quintessential dumb gamer. He only learned by dying. No plans, no thought, no steps taken to ensure the way back. He let his enthusiasm lead him deep into the forest. And there, he found the black caterpillar he'd been searching for. He happily began the hunt. John Yamato race, human male, adventurer. Magic points, 33 out of 52. Hit points, 74 out of 84. Strength, 13. Vitality, 10. Agility, 11. Dexterity, 10. Swordsmanship, 2. Defense, 1. Offensive magic, 1. Healing magic, 1. Self-reinforcement. Total combat power, 93. Plus 53. Magic, flame, healing. The fire-breathing bugs were quite dangerous. He came close to death 2 or 3 times, but the experience was proportionate, too. Yamato's combat power jumped in just 2 hours of hunting. The best part was the skill swordsmanship leveling to rank 2. Just the upgrade nearly doubled his total combat power. According to the forum, getting from 1 to 2 wasn't that difficult, but going to 2 to 3 would take a lot of work. Ever since his power doubled, he could kill the caterpillars before they spit fire with ease. If grinding the skill was that difficult, then he could simply go in deeper to search for stronger monsters, Yamato thought. He healed himself to a decent amount and moved on. As mentioned on the game forum, the beginner bonus item, Identification Crystal, would show information if there was a monster in his line of sight. It made looking for prey a lot easier. Yamato abused the item relentlessly, and he used up all 99 uses in just 2 hours of hunting. True, there were identification crystals used and sold by the town residents, but they weren't the perfectly processed spheres the bonus items were. just rough pieces of rocks. And despite having only 10 uses, they were priced at 3 silver coins approx. $300 in value each. The actual requirements for learning simple identification was to use the identification crystal 80 times on targets having at minimum a certain amount of magic power. Due to the rampant misinformation on the forums, many players failed to learn the skill while they still had the bonus item. They could still check their own status at the temple, but the inconvenience would stay with them until they unlocked the skill. Yamada was using his eyes, instead of his crystal, to search for mobs when he saw a strange white mist approaching from the forest depths. Though it looked like steam at first glance, he only realized it was a monster from the glint of light coming from inside it, which turned out to be an identification crystal. Yamada sneered, "Fucking hell, damn thing must have plundered the crystal from another player." The white mist didn't seem to be a hostile mob, but as it drifted closer, Yamada pulled out his sword and slashed. "Yahaha, drop that crystal. You're my XP now." The sword went through the white monster without resistance. Shit, normally, you'd change to magic once you found out your physical attacks didn't work. Yet Yamada applied his gamer brain in the most idiotic way. He thought the monster simply had a high dodge skill. He just kept on chopping. Strangely, the white mist stopped moving, looking as if dumbfounded. Then it moved, angered, to envelop Yamada. He kept screaming and swinging wildly for several minutes, until all his life and magic were drained. Yamada's body scattered into particles of light. He reappeared a few seconds later in the Temple of Sea's Kingdom's capital city, having not set a respawn point. All was shucks, I died. His first defeat, yet the fool still laughed. Once again, he headed out to battle to regain his lost stats and magic points. Fucking what? That was an actual beta tester. I showed him my identification crystal and approached, thinking he might realize I was a player. Never in my wildest dream would I expect him to rob me. He had my level of power, but a black caterpillar's level of intelligence. Lucky me. Never before had I felt the word meathead to be such an apt description of someone. I knew that when players died, their bodies disappeared and they left behind equipment. This guy just had a worn-out cloak, a few coins, and some sort of stick that looked like it was used to skewer meat. Why skewers? No-name race, gassed low demon. Low rank, a low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 123 out of 130, plus 22. Total combat power, 135 out of 143, plus 24. Unique skill, reroll simple identification. Oh, yes, right. I didn't notice when, but I learned identification. I was finally free from the anxiety at seeing the crystal's uses dwindle, but the skill had its own problems. I could identify myself for free, but identifying anything else used up 1 point of magic. And the skill wasn't even any better than the crystal. It only ever showed the magic points, total combat power, and the name chosen from my perception. Really, so troublesome. That aside, I got a lot of points from just a player character. Could it be that killing humans was the easiest way to grow as a monster? 5 days since the start of World of Yggdrasia's beta test. New information continued to be posted and constantly updated on the VR chat forum. Efficient skill leveling. Types of monsters, information on the game world's countries, etc. Chat board 7 please use the in-game common language. So yeah, instead of killing mobs willy-nilly, it's better to grind your skill with a decently strong monster. But you'll just get bogged down if you have low magic. Efficiency would go to shit. System's too annoying in the first place. Why do you have to use MP to actually use your combat skills? Go use items. Don't you know about magic recovery potions, idiot? That's fucking expensive. Those are 1 silver a pot. How the fuck do I afford that sort of drinking? It's around 6 small silvers a bottle here in Quarantine. That's dirt cheap. Where's that? Lassie, around the middle left part of the world map, I guess. Architecture looks Eastern European-ish. That's way far. I'm in Katrasvingt. Looks like an Eastern country. Other side of the map from you. Hey, the world's round. You're just right next door. Has anyone tried crossing continents? Don't think so. Even the fastest and most expensive express ship takes at least a few weeks. So do you just twiddle your thumbs while on the ship? Apparently, if you log out from the ship, you'll log back in there. Or if you logged out for too long, you'll show up at the nearest temple. Monsters attack the ship anyway, so you can level your weapon skill. So pretty much only people with free time are going to travel. Also, can we fish? I saw fishing gear on the market. Right, so the central continent's medieval European style. How about the other countries? I'm at the holy city Iyun, smack dab in the middle of the central cont. Closest country to the world tree. Good weather's coming soon. Damn, that's nice. If only my time zone fit with yours. I'm in Soixensept Kingdom, BTW. Bottom left of world map. Kinda like a tropical island. Most convenient medieval world ever. They have flush toilets. Food looks great too, but not edible. At least alcohol works fine. Still no food with buffs yet, right? Can't wait for the next update. So fed up with the damn bar. It's just sweet, nothing else. Stop complaining and go eat real food. VR can't fill your stomach. Hey, anyone knows about that rumor of weird monsters recently? What do you mean? How weird? Lots of different types. They have different colors or special skills, kinda like subspecies of the main one. People in other countries have been talking about that in the other chat rooms. Oh yeah, I know about that. Haven't seen them myself, but apparently they show up here and there. The Adventurers Guild has information on them now. There's a compilation of eyewitness reports on some other website, too, like an event monster or something. Checking out that site now. Ooh, right, that might be the one that attacked my friend. Hostile, then. Yeah, charged in right when it saw the party. It looked like a hobgoblin but with red skin. Friend's party was 4 people, killed it, but lost one of their own. They told me, it's just a game, but I could actually feel the madness. I damn near pissed my pants. So weird. Just checked out the website. So right now, we have info on around 10 of them. Maybe it's actually a new event. How strong are they generally? Anything new? Apparently you can win with combat skill 2 or 3. Also I heard there's this new one in the western forest of Sea's Kingdom. Looks like a white mist or a ghost or something. No name race, gassed. Low demon. Low rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 132 out of 150. Plus 20. Total combat power, 145 out of 165. Plus 22. Unique skill, reroll simple identification. 2 days since I fought that beta tester. That reminded me, the beta players could only pick the human race. Unless they had some really good intuition, I don't think they'd realize that monsters could be players. And I hadn't realized how desperate I'd become. I actually looked for help from just a normal player. I did a few more tests and experiments during the 2 days. Didn't grow my strength much, though. The forest didn't have any other monsters aside from me and the caterpillar type. So I wandered around and hunted some normal animals too. Speaking of which, the human mind really is good at adapting. It wasn't that I adapted to this body and no longer felt the sense of disconnect. No, it was still there. I only adapted to that feeling of disconnect itself, like getting used to living with permanent nausea. So I started widening my area of activity a little bit, but I only found less and less caterpillars, with normal wild animals taking their place. Rabbits, foxes, wolves, boars, birds. The foxes and birds ran away as soon as I approached. The wolves and boars I fought, and here was where I discovered that no normal beasts could harm me. I assumed that in a straight fight, the wolves could win against red caterpillars, and the boars had a chance against the black caterpillars too if they were allowed to charge into and crush the bugs. But unlike monsters, wild animals had little magic. They had around the same amount as the snakes I saw. What did this mean? Monsters used magic to fight, but the wild animals' meager amount of magic only allowed them to fight purely physically. I still received 1 and 2 damage from the black caterpillar and that player's physical attacks, but that was because they strengthened themselves with magic. I was a spiritual life form, aghast with resistance to physical damage. The wild animals' unenhanced strikes couldn't harm me, which meant the snakes might actually have been a kind of newborn monsters, not wild animals, since they did use magic. In the end, I was barely getting any stronger, despite my wholesale murder of the fauna. Back to the present. What was I doing? Well, I was busy getting chased by armed people. That way. Over there. My turn. Stone bolt. Holy crap, was that close. I only just managed to hide myself behind a tree trunk scant moments before the rock bullet bounced off the bark. The projectile looked like a normal rock, but it was magic, which meant it could hurt me just fine. I had actual proof. 3 humans wielding swords and staves were my opponents. They could have been normal NPC adventurers, but players were much more likely to be the kind of people who would charge this deep into the forest so thoughtlessly. Young man in swordsman equipment race, human male. Adventurer. Magic points. 55 out of 65 hit points, 118 out of 120. Total combat power, 145. Young woman in magician equipment race, human female. Adventurer. Magic points. 57 out of 75 hit points, 58 out of 80. Total combat power, 144. Young man in warrior equipment race, human male, adventurer. Magic points, 63 out of 70 hit points, 94 out of 110. Total combat power, 148. The swordsman's appearance looked truthful enough, but I had a feeling the magician lady was fudging her age. And the warrior's movements looked somehow disjointed. My hunch told me he was actually fat in real life. We'd been playing tag in the forest, and obviously, I wasn't any closer to victory. All of them had around the same power as me, with at least one confirmed magician. I didn't know if the others also had spells. The unfamiliar forest hampered their steps quite a bit, but then again, my best speed was only about a power walker's. I couldn't lose them, and they couldn't catch me. Really, would you people please stop? Moving at this speed was dizzying the crap out of me. So you must be wondering how I got into this mess. Well, after that fight with the meathead player, I wandered here and there, partially to watch for other beta players, partially to look for more black caterpillars. It was then that I found a small farming village. My curiosity spurred me to get closer. And oh no, I wasn't going to attack the people. Really, just the large cattles, like a cow or a horse. Maybe they'll give me some good experience. I just wanted to test it out. I thought it'd be an old, poor village. Instead, the farming community actually seemed quite well off. However, the farm hands weren't human, but elves, I supposed. Elves and beastmen with dog ears and cat ears. They showed no liveliness, no vigor in their work, their necks bound by some strange-looking collars. Who were these people? Slaves. Some human came along once in a while, at times to give orders, at times to give the slaves some steamed potato and soup. So it actually wasn't as bad as it could be, but in the end, the only ones not working were the humans. I was curious about them, or to be more precise, about their animal ears and tails. I approached to try to get a closer look, but just as I neared the fields, I hit something invisible. It gave me a jolt and pushed me away. What was that? It even damaged me a little bit. I stayed rooted on the spot, confused. A few moments later, some armed farmers began to show up from the building, so I panicked and ran away. They were just normal villagers. I was sure I could take them, but it would get much too troublesome if they sent soldiers to hunt me down. The farmers stopped chasing me once I entered the forest. Relieved, I decided to continue hunting some animals in the nearby woods and wait until the heat dies down. It was then that I met the group of 3. They suddenly attacked the moment they found me. And so here I was, running off deeper and deeper into the forest. Yet the group didn't even think twice before giving chase. They didn't seem to care about how they'd get back out again. Damn, that rock again. Why the hell wasn't the magician running out of magic? Was she taking drugs? And another one, oh crap, she's readying some fire this time. Right, that is enough. Re-roll. The flame blazing at the end of her staff exploded. The woman wailed, in surprise and pain. Wait, what? Did I just re-roll the magician's spell? I can actually use the skill on someone else. Oh wait, crap. No name, race, gassed low demon. Low rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 65 out of 150. Total combat power, 72 out of 165. Unique skill, reroll simple identification. My magic just plummeted from the improper use of my unique skill. Damn it, I couldn't engage them any longer. All 3 of them were too surprised to continue giving chase, so I took the chance to run off. Right, looked like I lost them. Still, I kept on gaining distance, cutting through the forest without rest. Not like I could ever get tired. I killed whatever caterpillars and animals I encountered along the way. After a whole 3 days of constant travel without stopping, I found a simple, primitive hamlet hidden deep inside the forest. I found a small settlement hidden deep behind the leaves. At first glance, the dwellings weren't much better than large tents draped with leaves for camouflage. There were 3 such tents, 3 families, about 10 people. Certain spaces, such as the kitchen, the wood-chopping block, or the butcher table, were communal. All were outside. I caught a few glimpses of the villagers. All was wearing simple flax tunics and leather boots. They lived a simple life, at one with nature. I couldn't try to make contact. I had the common language jammed into my brain, but I couldn't actually speak. And just look at me now. Normal animals and humanoid NPCs would just run away from me. I had better chances with players. Well, I was a type of demon, really, that shouldn't be surprising. Still, I wanted to continue watching them. Just a bit more. I couldn't approach the hamlet, but my guess was that they didn't have the barrier thing. I wanted to relax. Somehow, someway. My spirit was being beaten black and blue by the constant unease, like pins and needles in my brain, by the feeling of extreme disconnect to reality, and by so many other things. I was getting used to the feeling itself bit by bit, but I feared that after I'd completely adapted myself to it, going back to reality would drive me insane. Actually, why did these people decide to live all the way over here? The world was so real I forgot it was a game sometimes, but they were NPCs. Did they have a particular reason to live here? Did the developers expect the players to go in this deep? I thought this could be an event, and approached as close as I dared. then I understood why they were living here. They were elves. That reminded me of the guide's words. It said there were 99 human countries around the 99 saplings. Did that mean anyone not human were living in places so remote? I heard human civilization here were rather developed, with trains and everything. So there was quite the economic inequality here. If this world was as big as Earth, then the developers wouldn't bother manually placing every villages and settlements. This hamlet was probably randomly generated. Oh hey, there was a kid. A boy, about 5 years old. The only other kids in this settlement were babies, so the boy was playing alone, looking rather forlorn. Oh God, I want to meet him. I want to meet him so bad. I never had the best impression of adults and people my age. The only exceptions were little kids. Was there a way to make him not wary of me? I couldn't think of any. Oh, wait. There was those items that player dropped. Maybe I could use them. 1 old, undyed cloak, 3 small coins, and a few coins of another type. They looked like they were made from silver and copper, respectively. A wooden stick that looked like a meat skewer, and the identification crystal 5 out of 99 I had since the beginning, plus 1 dark red caterpillar fang. I could become the most suspicious-looking person ever. Anyway, first time for everything. Let's try wearing the cloak. Come on. God, this is hard. Using my dry ice smoke as hands was really difficult. It took me a few more minutes to realize that without fingers, I couldn't do any fine manipulation. I used nearly an hour just to put the cloak on my body, and the cloak just slipped through my gassed body. Why? I could use my body to pick up things. It was actually more like enveloping them, but it worked. I could hold small items like the crystal or coins within me, and they didn't drop. It just felt like holding onto a purse, which meant that if I was surprised, I'd drop the stuff. The cloak was big, but I could pick it up as long as I enveloped around half of it. It felt like balancing a tray with a dish of soup on top. Difficult, but still possible. And of course I'd still drop it if anything happened, so I could pick it up. I thought that meant I could wear it too, yet it didn't work. That was 1 hour stressing my little brain out. Give me back my time. Really, normally, monster avatars like mine were only capable of basic, preset actions, like how a normal game character could only do the actions bound on your keyboard. I'd had the chance to use VR a few times before. I'd seen swimming people who sank like rocks in real life, and martial arts masters without a single day of training. Those were all preset actions. It could be that this game's developers were also having us alpha testers evaluate what actions were possible for monster avatars, in addition to their stated purpose. I should calm down. I felt like I just spent a frustrating hour crocheting with 2 left feet. I rested, enjoying the debilitating dizziness from seeing beautiful nature with 360 degrees full-screen vision. After a few hours of incapacitation, I finally found the strength to face reality again. Oh yes, ghasts could shapeshift, right? Could I do humanoid shapeshifting? I thought my current body was a lot nimbler than my previous, doughy one. I had more volume now. I should be able to look like a small kid, at least. Alright, let's try. Greetings, everyone. It's a beautiful new day today. True, I could work this body similarly to my previous one. I could stretch and shrink, spread and cover, and more. But that didn't translate to having complete freedom over my shape. When I focused on a part to shapeshift, the parts of me I no longer focus on started to warp and pop. Shifting one part a centimeter caused it to somehow stretch by a whole meter, and I had to fight against my own gaseous body constantly drifting and changing by itself. All those problems took up a huge amount of my time. My mind was being tortured by the feeling of becoming a mass of sticky mud, but I persevered through. Had I managed to ignore the distress in my moment of extreme focus. Anyway, at about sunrise, I finally managed to assume a humanoid shape, just about as big as that elven boy, alabaster in color and waxy in texture. One problem, my skin was constantly melting and dripping. What the hell was I? A new type of monster. I couldn't even fathom how to make contact with people looking like this. Let's think about that later. I should try to move. This should be simple, just move the way I move my real body. Easy. Oh, sweet naivete, passed me of a few minutes ago. How you underestimated this game. Imagine this, you had a human statue, carefully built with iron sand, on a table, and you were only allowed to move it with 10 magnets, all held by different arms behind the statue, without letting it collapse. Impossible. Nope. And my brain was wailing at me, too. It was screaming from the feeling of extreme disconnect, born from moving a humanoid body within human means. My vision twisted and turned. No name. Race, gas low demon, low rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 160 out of 160. Plus 10. Total combat power, 176 out of 176. Plus 11. Unique skill, reroll, simple identification. Humanoid form terrible. And before I knew it, I had a new weird skill. What was this? Humanoid form terrible. Transformation of a non-human thing into something humanoid. Identification gave me pretty much what I expected. Also, I was really bothered by this one thing. By terrible, did it mean the skill was at the lowest level, or was it insulting my sculpting skill? Anyway, so that's another thing to practice daily, holding humanoid form. I should learn how to walk first. Currently, I was taking more than a minute just to move forward a step. I practiced until the sun set that day, all the while fighting against the nausea. My sculpting still hadn't gotten any better, so in the end I switched over to intensive training on wearing the cloak, all the way until morning. Again, what am I even doing with my life? We met when the elven boy was picking fruits and dried branches right near his village. "Who are you?" he asked timidly, but he hadn't bolted immediately. That's good. If he had, I was ready to turn back into gas and ran right away. Also, 3 cheers for the common language. All right, first step cleared. Judging from the way he looked, he wasn't afraid of me. I looked about as tall as him at the moment, wearing an oversized coat, the hood hiding my face. Even I had to admit I looked suspicious as all hell. I'd have run away if I saw me coming here. It took me 10 seconds just to walk a single step, so really, I was super grateful for the kid's courage. Or maybe NPCs were just that way. "Do you need me for something?" he asked. I didn't. Despite all the effort I put into making contact with him, I actually didn't. At any rate, I tried to tilt my head. Okay, this was difficult. Couldn't afford to traumatize him by messing up and looking like an eldritch abomination, though. I tried, somehow managing the gesture. "You can't speak." He looked concerned. I nodded a fraction. He stepped forward. I frantically shook my head, and he stopped. "I shouldn't get close." I nodded, affirming. Once again, he looked concerned. I know, right? I wouldn't know what to do with a kid who didn't speak, didn't allow anyone to get close, and didn't show their face, either. I just wanted to look at the boy close up. I never had any plans beyond that. He went silent, deep in thought. After a while, he nodded, seeming to have come to a conclusion. "So, I was helping Mom out." He suddenly started talking about himself. "Dad hunts, and he sometimes brings back monsters too. They look like black caterpillars, but really tasty. Oh, those were edible." He continued picking dried branches, talking while keeping a 10 meters distance with me. The work was done a while after. He fidgeted, adjusting his basket full of branches and fruits on his back, and looked at me. "Hey, I'm going back home. Can we meet again tomorrow?" He suggested a most wonderful idea. I nodded. "All right, tomorrow then. I have to go home now, or Mom would scold me. We were running from the slave hunters, so I'm not allowed to get back late." He replied with a beaming smile. I tried to wave as best as I could. He cheerfully returned with a wave of his own and ran towards the village. AIs these days were really amazing. It felt just like talking with a real human. So, slave hunters. Those collared elves and beastmen I saw back then were actual slaves. Then, I reached my limits just as the boy disappeared from my sight. I poofed back into gas, then hurried into the forest depths. Weren't skills supposed to be handled by the system, normally? My brain been doing all the work ever since the beginning here. I allowed myself to relax. This was interesting, but really stressful. At least I knew a lot more now. Even NPCs, adult elves, in this case, could hunt the black caterpillars, despite their strength not seemingly that high. Adult elf race, elf male, villager. Magic points MP, 50 out of 50. Hit points HP, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 63. About the same as the black bug, and the same as me just before my evolution. I suppose that was why they could survive here, in this forest. I'd been practicing my humanoid form for 2 days straight already. I should get back to hunting. But after knowing their food situation, I was much more reluctant to continue staying here. Was there something for me to hunt further away? Recent events had shown me the need to be much more cautious, which was why I'd been heavily scouting. And a few organized magical signals was pinging on my radar. They were humans. Wait a minute. Don't tell me that kids talk about slave hunters just caused a game event to start. I detected a few magical signals approaching the small elven settlement, most likely humans. Combined with the word slave hunters I heard, I had a bad feeling about this. I headed towards them. An hour later at normal walking speed, I saw 9 humans. They probably weren't beta players. Dirty, unkempt looks, ratty leather coats. Unlike the players I met before, they weren't paying much attention to their appearance. Of course, they might be players role-playing as bandits, but I doubted that. It had only been 10 days since the game started. I didn't think those kind of role players would show up so soon. I got as close as I dare to take a closer look on their equipment. They had more hand axes and bows than swords, plus plenty of ropes on their belts. Only one looked like a magician. That one was fiddling with a choker. That was way more evidence than I ever asked for. Let's assume they were truly slave hunters. If this game event happened due to the kids' talk about slave hunters, then their target must be the elven settlement. Maybe they were a group of simple animal hunters making a living. The ropes were to capture large animals like deers. The magician was fiddling with that choker because he was bored. Yeah, I know, that was a stretch even by my standard. So then, what do I do? My original goal was to gain strength and survive until the end of the alpha test, for 10 years of life and a new identity. The experiment's goal was to investigate the mental stress of the disconnect born from using a monster avatar extremely different from the human body. There was no need for me to clear the game. Being slaves did not necessarily mean being mistreated. The elven villagers were just NPCs. There was no need for me to care. Sorry, I lied. I cared a ton. I might have become a lot more apathetic to sapient life ever since my mental health started plummeting, but I had met this boy. I'd talked to him. I couldn't let anything bad happen to him. There were two choices here. One, I warned the village of the danger. If only I could speak. I could try to threaten them. But what if their programming didn't allow them to run? Then I'd be their enemy. Two, I deal with these people before they could find the settlement. Well, they wouldn't be here if they didn't know where it was already. Before they could approach the settlement, then. I couldn't just chase them away. I needed to make sure they never come back. I didn't know if I could even win here, though. Magician. Race, human male. Slave hunter. Magic points, 65 out of 65. Hit points, 48 out of 48. Total combat power, 86. Hunter. Race, human male. Slave hunter. Magic points, 40 out of 40. Hit points, 70 out of 70. Total combat power, 70. Goon. Race, human male, slave hunter. Magic points, 30 out of 30. Hit points, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 57. Unsurprisingly, they were weaker than beta players, but they still had around the same power as a black caterpillar, plus human intelligence and magic. They weren't exactly easy opponents. Intelligence was what allows one to defeat more powerful enemy, and was the reason why humans were so scary. Yet that was still no reason for me to retreat here. But what if they weren't actually slave hunters? As soft as I was, I couldn't act until I was 100% sure. I made plans to confirm. First off, I used humanoid form, a skill in name only, as what should have been processed by the system was all offloaded to my brain to turn humanoid, then wore the cloak. I approached, then stopped hiding myself when I was close enough and started walking towards them, taking several seconds for a single step. The day was nearly over. I suppose the slave hunters were planning on making camp until morning. Hey, there's something over there. As I moved closer, the one keeping a lookout shouted to his fellows. Yes, there's something here all right. Look, I'm a defenseless kid wandering around in the dark. The magician tilted his head, looked at me, then smirked. My, a kid found us. That won't do at all. Hey, folks, don't let him escape. The more elven kids we get, the better. They fetch a high price among our more degenerate buyers. Yeah, got it. Two of the goons cracked their knuckles and loosened their shoulders. They approached, looking like this was just another chore to be done. But their leering smiles betrayed their excitement. Guilty as charged. The forest was darkening, and the goons weren't expecting trouble. I shot my body out from the coat sleeves and covered their faces. Wah, smoke. They panicked. I absorbed their life force as fast as I could. Their comrades still hadn't realized anything was wrong, with me hidden behind the goons in the gloomy forest. Seeing the two men desperately waving hands in front of their faces, the rest of them stood, finally alarmed. What happened? The two goons gurgled and dropped to the ground. The magician started, eyes wide open. Get away from that kid. That's a monster. Whoops, but I got two of them. No name. Race, gas low demon. Low rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 168 out of 176. Plus 16. Total combat power, 185 out of 194. Plus 18. Unique skill, reroll simple identification humanoid form. Plenty of new magic for me. A moment later, an arrow pierced through me. Did that kill it? A hunter shouted. You killed some air. It tingled a bit, at most. I abandoned my cloak and flew at him. Ugh, get away from it. That must be a wraith. Load up your magitools with magic stones, now. No. Save me. The magician merciless set fire on both the enveloped hunter and me. Damn if it wasn't hot. But I held on, sucking out his last wisps of life. He shriveled up, sowing even more confusion among the men. They just finished putting some sort of black stones into their bows. I assumed those were the magic stones and magitools, some sort of enchanted weapons. Those would probably be able to inflict damage on my barely tangible body, but I had already moved before the men could do anything. Towards the goons unequipped with anything effective. It's coming here. Stay away. Stay away. Humans had more magic than wild animals, so they could still barely hurt me. However, I had more around triple their combat power. I had nothing to worry from them. Come on, fiend. See how you like this. In his fear and confusion, one of the more tough-looking goons drew his dirty short sword. Watch out. One of the wraith's ability is to cause fear. The magician's voice rang out. Well, I wasn't a wraith, but close enough, I supposed. The sword-wielding goon swung his sword in wild abandon. Apparently just seeing me was enough to terrorize him. I absorbed all his life force in one go. No-name race, gassed low demon. Magic points, 158 out of 191. Plus 15. Total combat power, 177 out of 210. Plus 18. My maximum magic went up from killing the hunter and the goons, but my combat power went down from all the damage. Oh shit. The hunters used their bows. The goons tried to run from me. I caught up, then used them as meat shields. But the hunters no longer cared about friendly fire. One of the arrows pierced clean through a goon's neck. He gurgled and went down. If they weren't worrying about their own comrades, then neither need I. I snatched up the last of his dwindling life. No name, race, gassed low demon. Low rank, magic points, 149 out of 193. Plus 2. Total combat power, 168 out of 212. Plus 2. I got almost nothing. Might be because he was nearly dead. Might be because someone else killed him. There were more important things to worry about. Namely, that there was still half of them left, while my combat power had dropped too much. 1 magician, 2 hunters, 1 goon. All the strong ones were left. Damn, fucking useless dumbasses. What the fuck am I paying you for? Kill that thing. But boss, it's strong. We lost too many of us. Let's retreat. Shut the fuck up. The nobles wanted us to bring back young girls and elven kids. We can't go back like this. Oh, I see. They wanted elven children slaves. A part of me understood that this was just a game event, that they were just NPCs, but the rest of me was too busy being incensed. The group kept shooting and the magician kept throwing fire even as they argued. I ignored the hits and attacked the weakest one first. Noob, stay away, stay a while. Stay, you maggot. Stay and keep it still. The rest, keep shooting. Don't hate us, alright. You were just unlucky. One of the hunters clicked his tongue. Yeah, sure, don't hold a grudge for being sacrificed. But considering it was me they were sacrificing to, it wasn't really my place to say anything. The goon hysterically ran about, and I chased after my future meat shield. Then one of the hunters shot through his leg. The goon screamed, "Good job, firebolt." There weren't anywhere for me to hide. Now, the magician shot a bullet of flame at me. Reroll. The mass of flame exploded in front of me. Freaking hot. At least it wasn't a direct hit. I could bear with this. What? I used the flame as a smokescreen and attacked the bow-wielding hunter closest to me. It wasn't really anything amazing. I just stretched out a part of me and tried to parry the bullet of fire away, for a lack of a better term. I couldn't afford to fail there, so I used reroll to raise my chances of success. It worked. The spell's damage was reduced by half, and I could get moving right away after the parry. The hunters were fast, but not the one carelessly believing I was down from the fire. I landed a clean grab on him. He rolled and writhed around, desperately trying to dislodge me. Stay right there. This is our chance. Boss, stop. The magician was about to burn the both of us like he did with the goon, and this time the other hunter took offense to that. I took the chance to absorb the life of the downed hunter post-haste. I am your employer. Shut up and follow my fucking orders. We accepted because we were promised a few elves of our own, not to get fucking killed by a fucking dumbass. The magician screamed in incoherent rage. He readied a particularly powerful fire spell to be cast at the hunter. Here's my chance. Reroll. I forced the spell to fail, and it exploded right on their heads. They howled in pain and stumbled, faces held in hands. The magician losing his calm probably contributed to my own success with the skill. Also, I confirmed that using the skill on someone else drove up the cost immensely. I felt like I just lost almost half my magic in one go. No name race, gassed low demon. Magic points, 63 out of 193. Total combat power, 82 out of 212. I absorbed the last dregs of life from the nearly mummified hunter, then went on to envelop both the magician and the final hunter all at once. My combat power was low, my movement was sluggish, and I was getting quite irritated. Wah wah. Damn wraith. Stop. Screw you, I wasn't a wraith. Goig. Fuck. Fire. The hunter went limp nearly immediately, but the magician's high magic power took time to completely absorb. He burned me as I clinged on his face, scorching my life. I held on. The spells he used only helped me empty his magic faster. A few seconds later, he finally slumped on the ground. The battle was over. With victory, relief washed over me. I only barely won. I'd been on tenterhooks the whole fight, and it ended with me having only a sliver of health left. Too dangerous. No-name race. Gassed low demon. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 27 out of 238. Plus 45. Total combat power, 50 out of 262. Plus 69. Unique skill, reroll. Simple identification. Humanoid form. Rank up available. My maximum power grew a bunch, but I was as weak as the day I began the game. I still couldn't believe I won. Wait a minute. Rank up. More weird stuff. This wasn't evolution. Well, whatever, that was for future me to think about. Current me was feeling too drained, my mind heavily abused from the exertion of the fight and the lack of magic. So, the village should be pretty safe now. Oh, right. That one goon with his leg shot was still alive. I honestly wasn't all that keen on killing someone defenseless, but if he report back, there'd be more slave hunters coming. So I made up my mind. I slowly rose. The goon quivered, watching me with fear evident in his eyes. Then an arrow went through his chest, and another into the ground beneath me. What? I expanded my consciousness to scout for threats. Several adult elves emerged from the forest depths, bows pointing towards me warily. Oh boy, what do I do? Author's note, the fights still seem low-key, but that's only for the moment. We'll be getting to the big booms sooner or later. A bit of exposition for reroll. Actions have a fixed 3% chance of being a critical failure. Chances of success for physical attacks are lowered by the opponent's dodge rate. Magic-like effects can vary in power, is modified by the opponent's resistance plus other factors, but they only rarely fail completely. However, one trait is shared among all demon types, the ability to cause fear to living beings. When a demon is feared by a weaker opponent, for each rank the demon possesses, the opponent's success rate drops by 10%. The reroll skill also has ranks. At its current rank, the protagonist can use it twice in a row. The skill consumes 10 magic each time it fails. If it succeeds, and if the skill was used on a target that wasn't the skill user, it consumes an amount of magic according to the power difference between the target and the user. And of course, rerolling can fail every single time. I fought to prevent the hunters from reaching the elven village, and now the villagers were pointing their arrows at me. They likely found out about the battle from all the fire magic and the shouting. And it seemed like they realized the men were slave hunters, judging from the arrow through the goon's chest. 3 men. Likely, they were all the fighting force the settlement could muster. Adult elf. Race, elf male. Hunter. Magic points, 50 out of 50. Hit points, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 63. The women had to stay back for their kids. Against 9 slavers, the settlement would have had no hope. And now they had to contend with a single monster who wiped the floor with those slavers. Yes, hello, it's me. No wonder they were on guard. The bow-wielding elves weren't so much wary as they were terrified. Likely, it was the reason why they didn't shoot me directly. Instead of risking my anger with a hit, they were warning me that they had their eyes on me, that I'd better go somewhere else. No, not a warning. A plea. Okay, fine. I drifted off, as non-confrontational as possible. The elves still had their bows trained on me, but relief was clear on their faces. I continued moving deeper into the forest. Once they disappeared from my sight, I hurried upwards to the canopy of a nearby tree and let loose a sigh of relief of my own. God, I thought I almost had a heart attack. Well, my body was in cold sleep, but still, I barely had any magic left. If their bows were magically enchanted, a volley could have killed me. No name. Race, gas low demon. Low rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. A fragile spiritual life form. Magic points, 24 out of 238. Total combat power, 47 out of 262. Unique skill, reroll. Simple identification. Humanoid form terrible. Rank up available. I practically had 1 foot in the grave already. Now, this rank up thing. I understood that it was different from an evolution. Did it mean becoming a stronger kind of ghast, then? I couldn't even begin to imagine what the result would be. Well, let's try some identification. Rank up available. Transform into a higher ranking race. Exactly what it said on the tin, then. I supposed ranking up would make me immobile again. This probably wasn't going to be as large a change as evolving, so I might as well try. Just as well that my magic was near empty, then. If ranking up put my magic back to 1 again, it wouldn't make much of a difference. And I should be getting as strong as I can in preparations for any more unforeseen battles. I started the process. Morning of the next day, my magic was back to full. He should be out helping his family around this time, so I headed towards where we promised to meet. The rank up worked. Nothing particularly noteworthy happened. Didn't have to recover my magic back from 1, and my body didn't change much, either. At most, the gas just looked a little thicker. I moved somewhat better in humanoid form now, so that was good. After last night, perhaps the elven boy wouldn't even show up. On the way, I detoured to where the fight happened to recover my cloak. It was still there, for some reason, but the corpses were gone. Perhaps the elves buried them, perhaps just throwing the corpses somewhere far away, or perhaps like most other games, corpses disappeared after a certain amount of time. At any rate, it had been a whole night. The elves should have gone back home. I arrived, peeking into the meeting spot from behind a tree. The boy was standing there, alone, a few fruits stuffed in his pockets. Hey now, that's very dangerous. A little kid all alone in the forest. What if there were monsters? I turned humanoid, wore the cloak, and moved towards him. He flashed a smile the moment he saw me. Hey, you're here. Yes, I am. I ceased my sluggish steps and waved. He didn't get any closer. Good. Seemed like he remembered our talk yesterday, as one-sided as it was. He looked relieved, but at the same time, grimaced slightly. What's this? He looked somewhat different. Right, no basket on his back today. Why? We'll be leaving this place soon, the boy said, forcing the words. What? I asked him with a head tilt. Some scary humans came yesterday. They were slave hunters. The grown-up said we'd ran away from them once, when I was younger, but they found us again. Yeah, but I dealt with them, though. And then this white monster killed them all. It's dangerous to live here now, so we're leaving. Right. I supposed I shouldn't be surprised. No slavers could be as scary as a monster. Hey, the boy interrupted my thoughts, his voice resolute. You killed those bad people, right? You must be this forest's elemental spirit. I knew you were. What? I told the grown-ups so, but they didn't believe me. They said you were a scary monster. But I know that's not true. I know you're a good elemental. No. I was worse than monsters. I was a demon. Sorry, I have to go soon. Can you tell me your name? I thought you knew I couldn't speak. I tried to pantomime my muteness, pointing fingers towards my mouth and shaking my head with jerky movements, like a puppet on strings. Realization dawned on the boy's face. I see. You don't have a name yet. All right, I'll name you then. No, seriously, what? Let's see. Right, there is this elven legend about elementals living on cold mountains called Shedimwan. And you're like the white snow, too. So I'll call you Shedi. It's perfect. Hey, no, wait, what about my opinion? The naming seemed to have satisfied him. He gave a few vigorous wipes of his face with the shirt's sleeves, hiding tearful eyes, and before I could do anything, ran off towards the hamlet. I'll see you again, Shedi. I'll come find you once I get older. I promise. He turned around and spoke to me for the last time. I gave a wordless cry. The elven boy, born and raised in the forest, disappeared in scant moments. He hadn't even told me his name. I wasn't an actual elemental, nor was I living in this forest. I could follow him, but after that farewell full of emotions, it'd be awkward as all hell if I just show up in front of him again so soon. He was an elf in the first place. How many years would it take for him to grow up? Time passed at the same rate both within and without the game, right? Such a pity. I finally found a spot of solace in the kid, and now he's leaving. Well, whatever. I got more information, and the rank up strengthened me. That was good enough. Shedi race, white gas low demon. High rank, a low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 300 out of 300, plus 62. Total combat power, 330 out of 330, plus 68. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification, humanoid form. I suddenly had a craving for canned white asparagus. So weird. And I had a name, now. Managed to drop one of the low in my rank, plus the fragile in my description. Was this the actual starting point for monsters? New racial skill, more magic, more strength, and I think I could move faster now. The terrible in my shapeshifting skill turned into crude. That's better, right? So I guessed it really wasn't the rank of the skill, but an evaluation of my own design skill. I tested it out. Driving my humanoid body used to feel like moving iron sand with magnets. Now it felt like pulling puppet strings instead. I still only looked like a human if you squint really hard, though. Before, I could only barely hold my form into a melting wax statue. Now, the melting had stopped, and I felt like I had actual joints. Still wasn't good enough to appear in front of other people without my cloak. But I had a more important problem. That wasn't to say that my waxy look wasn't a problem, mind you. For some reason, my bipedal form now had long, droopy ears. I had had bullies picking on me since a long time ago, and one of their nicknames for me had been Rabbit, for my white hair and red eyes. Yes, okay, sure, but that was not a good reason for me to be growing rabbit ears. Side note, in Jewish mythology, Shedem was a kind of spirit or demon. Several sources gave conflicting descriptions, but this particular one stood out for the similarities to this novel. In Nominide's opinion, the demons, Shedem, are to be found in waste, Shedjudim, ruined, in cold places such as in the north. They were not created out of the four elements but only out of fire and air. They have subtle bodies, imperceptible by the human senses, and these subtle bodies allow them to fly through fire and air. Because they are composed of different elements, they come under the laws of creation and decay, and they die like human beings. Their sustenance is derived from water and fire, from odors and saps, hence necromancers burned incense to demons. Despite the element of subtle fire which they contain, they are surrounded by a coldness that frightens off the exorcisers. This detail is singled out only in later sources. Secret Alpha Tester Number 44. Time elapsed 317 hours, 18 minutes. Cessation of neural activity confirmed. As per procedure, requesting dispatch of disposal team. Secret Alpha Tester Number 62 and Number 71. Time elapsed 317 hours, 20 minutes. Confirmed logout from mental collapse. As per procedure, requesting transport to the collection facility. Secret Alpha Tester N Number 99. Signs of mental collapse confirmed after evolving to the second stage. The 7th Research Center was monitoring the alpha test subjects within the MMORPG world of Yggdrasia. Monotonous announcements of the test subjects' terrible fates rang out, one after another. At the 100 hours mark, 10% had dropped out. Once the subjects began to reach their first evolutions, the number of survivors plummeted. It was the 13th day since the start of the experiment. 7 subjects died from cessation of brain activity. 31 in a vegetative state after their mental collapses and subsequent forced logouts. Oh wow, a bunch of them at once, Brian said, bemused. This man was the deputy director of the 7th Research Center. The actual director was an ex-politician appointed to the position through a revolving door, and so the facility's leader was effectively Brian himself. His secretary-cum-researcher nodded and replied softly. Our psychologists proposed the following theory to explain for the occurrence. These particular subjects had chosen to start with demi-human and animal-type avatars, which had basic actions programmed. However, upon evolution and reaching the second stage, their avatars lost most of the programmed actions, only retaining the bare basics due to their shapes and range of movements being incongruent to normal living beings. The mental pressure compounded with the disconnect to elevate their distress and fear, and this could have quickened their collapse of the psyche. Right, so did the doctors mention any solution? Yes, according to the medical team, the easiest solution would be medication, or log the subjects out and stabilize their minds. The game development department suggested analyzing the action feedback from the subjects in order to update the programmed movements for monster avatars as soon as possible. So only impractical solutions, then, Brian chuckled. Investigating the limits of mental stress that the human mind could handle was one of their purposes. That was true, but not the most important one. Put a person with a broken ego into a monster vessel, and chances are high operation of the avatar would be near optimal. To investigate how much mental stress resulted from what actions, it was most efficient to push the subjects' minds as much as possible. Nearly 40% had dropped out after just 13 days, despite the original plan calling for half a year. At the same time, the results they gained was commensurate. The top brass was very satisfied with their progress. The project's next test subjects would be actual soldiers, partially to prepare for them, and partially since the center had managed to acquire test subjects with no official presence in society. Brian planned on squeezing every last drop of science from the orphans. Right, aren't there still a few stable ones? Yes, Deputy Director. We retained 17 relatively stable subjects. However, the majority of them were laying low, far away from human civilization, only barely active. Well, we can't have that. Ideas to deal with the problem. Reports from the data processing department said they've been leaking the testers' locations to the local Adventurers Guild in game, plus several online forums and wikis anonymously. Shall we keep it going? Yeah, that's good. Keep it up. That reminds me, what happened to the Berserkers? Over half have been killed by beta testers. 6 subjects had deteriorated into mental collapse from the fear of being hunted by humans. Any of them stable, active, and evolved? Yes, their stabilities varied, but number 1, number 8, number 13, and number 17 have been actively entering combat, and also reached the 3rd stage, the rank up, the secretary said. She looked at the screen showing the surviving subjects, and continued, faint admiration in her words. The first 23 truly lived up to expectations. Only 5 had dropped out, and it looked like they'd been making good use of their inborn abilities. The elves had left for a new land, and the boy had given me a new name as the guardian spirit of this forest. But I was a demon, not a spirit, and I didn't even live here. Shitty race, white ghast, low demon. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 303 out of 303, plus 3. Total combat power, 333 out of 333, plus 3. Unique skill, reroll racial skill, fear. Simple identification humanoid form. Oh, whatever. I'd have to drop my real name sooner or later anyway. In hindsight, picking that fight was a pretty harebrained idea, but it turned out well in the end. I got so much stronger compared to the first day of the game. I was quite sure I had reached the top of the food chain in this forest by now. Even killing black caterpillars only gave me a pittance of power. And not just that, they were running from me the moment they sensed me. Now, considering all that, I suppose killing humans really was the most efficient way. Or maybe the bugs were running away because of the new skill I got from the rank up. Racial skill, fear. A passive skill of the demon race. Terrifies the weak. Wow, how the hell did that boy not run away from me? Could I still disguise myself with the cloak? If someone with good presence sensing skills was to see me, wouldn't they feel the fear? Damn it, this was the most obnoxious skill ever. At first glance it might seem useful for combat, but it only worked with enemies so weak as to be inconsequential in the first place, and anything I wanted to hunt would just run away from me. I supposed I really should leave, then. But it'd be really awkward to pop up in front of the boy again after that tearful goodbye, so I traveled in the other direction. Those elves cleaned up everything belonging to the slavers I killed. All I had was the usual cloak and my miscellanies. Floating for a while reaffirmed my realization that yes, I had to focus my mind on something, otherwise the discomfort would rear its head again. I had been forcing myself to believe that the discomfort and everything wrong I felt was just the brain's hallucinations, but reality's never as easy as you'd like. But, well, I didn't need to crawl along on the ground anymore. Just drifting along didn't provoke the sense of disconnect too badly, and my mind didn't melt as much. This was pretty much the only good thing in choosing the ghast. At least, it was a lot more comfortable than moving with legs. Could I ever return to a normal human life? I wanted to get in some practice for shapeshifting too, but those rabbit ears just did not go away. Fine, let's leave humanoid form for later thinking. Got a bit faster, too. I crossed forests and mountains at a power walker's pace, and 3 days later, the scenery finally changed. The thick, gloomy, broad-leaved forest gradually gave way to a bright, open woodland of needle-leaf trees. Far away, a humongous mountain range dominated the horizon. So turned out I just got even further away from human civilization. Well, whatever. I slightly increased my scouting range and found a few magical signals, somewhat stronger than the monsters and animals living in that elven forest. Might be perfect for me as I was now. I started to move towards them. The signal was rather fast, but stopped midway, as if to feed on something. Then I saw it. Horned wolf. Magic points, 58 out of 70. Hit points, 116 out of 120. Total combat power, 112. Stronger than a black caterpillar, so it must give decent experience, right? High magic plus the horn meant it should be a monster. I estimated around 5 to 6 experience points for each wolf. Thankfully, there were a lot of them. I could cover the quality with quantity. How did I get so much experience from humans when they were so much weaker? Was this why monster attack people? Let's think about that later. I snuck up behind the wolf, currently busy devouring a rabbit, and struck. It howled in pain, struggling violently in my grasp, then chomped at me. Ouch, that hurt a bit more than non-magical attacks from humans. Shitty race, white ghast low demon. Magic points, 298 out of 303. Total combat power, 328 out of 333. I was careless, relying on my physical resistance. Perhaps the claws and fangs of monsters were magical, like enchanted weapons. The wolf kept on raging against its restraint, and howling. Stop that already. But well, as I was, the most it could do was just prickling me, so I kept with the absorption and desiccated it. The experience received was just as I predicted. Shitty race, white ghast low demon. Magic points, 302 out of 308, plus 5. Total combat power, 328 out of 338 plus 5. I wanted that horn too, but I wasn't as corporeal as I used to be pre-evolution. I couldn't exactly do physical attacks, and thus couldn't take the corpse apart. Seemed like I'd gotten quite used to fighting, and the gore. Now, I'd managed to learn how to sidestep the constant mental pain, but I also felt more aggressive from time to time. Problematic. Alright, anything else to kill? I re-expanded my detection range. A few magical signals were speeding towards me. Wait, what? A chorus of howls answered me. Shit, that was a wolf pack. More than 10 of them. The howling when I was fighting that wolf must have had summoned the pack. This was bad. Their hits could only scratch me, but considering the number, I'd be dead of 1,000 cuts. And I couldn't recover mid-fight like that time with the slavers. Individual wolf kills gave me too little. I ran, floating up high enough so their fangs wouldn't reach me. Discretion is the better part of valor. I wasn't going to die and get my magic cut in half again after all this work. My best speed was just around a human runner's. The wolves were faster, but they should give up once they saw that they couldn't reach me, I thought, and that was when they started to run up a tree and follow me from the branches. Oh, that was just unfair. I could just about imagine them laughing at my thoughts. What sort of super wolves were these? They weren't even scared of me. Was mob psychology bolstering their courage? Shit, what to do? Then I heard another far-off howl, reverberating from the depths of the woods. I shivered. Another wolf, the boss of this gang. But then, why did I feel like that howl came from two different voices? And even the wolves feared it. What was that? Some distance away from us, a tree cracked, falling to the side to reveal the beast. It was an azure-horned wolf with a flaming mane, twice as big as the others. But those eyes, they were steeped in dark hatred, cursing all of existence. 2 pairs of eyes on 2 heads. What are you? The 2-headed horned wolf approached in an instant. And then, I couldn't believe my eyes. It began to rip into and tear apart the other wolves. The wolf pack scattered in panic. I was watching the carnage from above, stunned, when the 2-headed wolf pounced at me, despite me being 5 meters off the ground. No, shit, wait, Shetty race, white ghast low demon. Magic points, 270 out of 308. Total combat power, 310 out of 338. Holy hell, it took off 10% just by scratching me. Right, what about you? 2-headed horned wolf. Magic points, 143 out of 170. Hit points, 263 out of 280. Total combat power, 466. What was this power? That was 50% more than mine. Nope, no fighting this. The normal horned wolves were still yelping, tails tucked between their legs. I immediately dove into the pack, mingling, trying to get the 2-headed to target one of them. Terribly cruel, even if I say so myself, but it wasn't the time for that sort of thinking. Luckily it worked, and while the mad beast was ravaging the wolves, I took the chance to retreat as fast as I could. I was out of the fight. I was pretty sure I didn't have any sort of smell for it to track me, but I couldn't take chances here. I kept flying, blindly, without a thought as to my destination. After a while, I thought I heard a howl of sadness, of resentment, coming from the distance. Or you, an alpha tester. I thought all the other testers were fine, considering how I had managed to endure. But maybe that wasn't true. Maybe they were suffering. I looked up at the moon, my mood introspective. A mental sigh resounded in my mind. I just want my spot of solace. Author's note, main character's pretty much the only one who seemed easygoing. 1 day had passed since the encounter with the probable alpha tester. Leaving the territory of the mad wolf seemed prudent, so I turned my back on the mountain range and walked. Yes, I walked. I'd been constantly using and practicing my humanoid form crude since encountering the wolves. Reason: I just realized, perhaps all too late, that encountering strong monsters out of nowhere was a very real possibility when you live in the mountains, forests, basically anywhere without human presence. So I thought that if I made my living just barely near the border of a human country, I wouldn't be meeting any monster too terrible. And I could start hunting humans, too, not just monsters. What? Attacking travelers? No way. I'd just get adventurers and beta players after me. I was actually aiming for the bandits attacking those travelers. There are bandits, right? So I wanted to look close enough to humans to fool them. It was why I was cutting up my own mind just for the practice. Wait a minute, wasn't this exactly how camouflage predators evolved? That insane wolf. If they really were an alpha tester like me, then there wasn't much I could do. I wasn't remotely mentally healthy enough to try to save someone stronger than me, without even knowing how. That time with the elven village was different. I had an actual chance of victory back then. The solution was simple. I was sort of fired up after meeting a little kid. They were all reasons, but perhaps the most important one was that in a way, I felt excited at the prospect of attacking humans. Crap, was I turning into a deviant? My mind didn't seem to be heading down the insanity route, nor any other route too terrible. but I had a feeling the path it was currently on would lead to some serious trouble down the line. Well, whatever. So yeah, I'd been mentally processing the humanoid form skill while walking for a whole day, and then some. My latest check showed a change. Shetty race, white gas, low demon, high rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points. 325 out of 325. Plus 17. Total combat power. 357 out of 357. Plus 19. Unique skill, reroll racial skill, fear. Simple identification, humanoid form, amateur. Surprise. The humanoid form skill got better. That's better, right? So I think that by ranking up, the quantity and quality of my magic got better, which afforded me the foundations of humanoid form. Crude became amateur. To use a cooking analogy, it'd be like I had finally graduated from making charcoals into making something barely edible. I checked for hostiles nearby. With my privacy confirmed, I dropped the cloak and took a closer look at myself. I looked better, I think. My skin wasn't melted wax anymore. Much smoother, no drifting or flowing either, even if behind the skin layer my gaseous body was still circulating. My body composition finally got good enough so that I could handle it like sculpting clay now, but for some stupid reason, that pair of rabbit ears was impossible to mess with. Why? I tried to force the ears to shrink, and my eyes jumped out of their sockets. Then, while I was reeling from the sight, the eyes slowly returned to normal, and the ears popped out again. Why? Being called a rabbit due to the albinism was, to me, nothing but an insult. No more. At least, that's what I thought. I never expected it had actually gotten to me so much. On the bright side, they weren't the pointy kind of rabbit ears. They were droopy, lop ears, in other words, which meant that the cloak should hide them just fine. If I ever managed to fully humanize myself, I'd have to pose as a rabbit girl. And I didn't even know if that particular beastman race existed. With the improvement in humanoid form, I could make fingers now. Oh, I'd missed actually picking things up. Wearing the cloak came a lot easier. Hey, didn't it look kinda dirty? Not surprising, I supposed. It had looked old even when worn by that weird beta player. After the many times it was dropped on the ground from my practice, exposed to the rain and wind for over a week straight, and dragged on the dirt and rocks due to my lack of height when shapeshifted, now the undyed garment was no better than a rag. I mean, I used to have one like it in real life, but this was a game. No need to keep it dirty. Actually, this was pretty amazing technology. The game was realistic enough to simulate the damage and dirt when you abuse it. I'd known this was cutting-edge technology, but the realism was still astonishing. I focused all my attention on my hearing. Nothing here. I moved away, checking from time to time, until I finally found what I'd been looking for. The splashing of a river. Yes, I'd been planning on washing the cloak. It was a rivulet of spring water, trickling through rocks and pebbles, just about 30 centimeters wide. I made my bipedal body squat down near the stream, which took a surprising amount of effort. Remember when I described the similarities of moving myself to puppetry? Well, I wasn't sure if it's because my skill level went up or if I simply got used to it, but it felt like I had more strings to control. Now, you couldn't do this kind of stuff in normal video games. I was just enjoying the true VR experience. I thought, trying my best to convince myself that the scene of a demon doing laundry wasn't the stupidest thing in the world. I sighed. I'd been sidestepping the stress and irritation by latching onto new thoughts as soon as they came. Apparently, that had the side effect of loosening my personality into something a lot more inane. I kept on trying, and failing, to wash the stains off. After a while, I saw something in the corner of my vision well. I had 360 degrees vision, so it wasn't like there were corners, more like the part of my vision that I didn't actively pay attention to moved. Boing, what was this? It looked like a translucent mass of light green, about 20 centimeters. It was camouflaged pretty well with the amount of green around me. When I saw it, it was bouncing around about 2 meters downstream from where I was, looking like it was trying to scoop some water. A ball of jelly. I think it was a slime, but not drippy and gooey like I used to be. This one looked far jigglier and bouncier. Was this rivulet where the local docile monsters came to drink? It didn't show any sign of fear, so perhaps it hadn't noticed me yet. Let's keep it that way. I continued scrubbing the cloth. Why was the possible slime bouncing? Why did it look like it was having fun? Well, whatever. I had to admit, the cloak just didn't want to get clean. Maybe some detergent would have helped, but it's not like I could get any. I held up the soaked cloak and checked my work. Fine, this was good enough. Too much scrubbing would just damage the fabric, and I cleaned off most of the dirt anyway. There were still a few tough black stains. Boing, the possible slime was bouncing right below the garment, drinking up the dripping droplets. Since when? And it wasn't afraid of me. Was it actually super powerful? Slime, magic points, 5 out of 5. Hit points, 5 out of 5. Total combat power, 5. That's weak. Even weaker than I was when I started. Perhaps it wasn't even smart enough to know fear. Other possibilities included alpha testers. Nah, no way. I didn't want to entertain the pitiful idea that there was a human being inside of a monster so stupid as to be happy just from drinking laundry water. So a real monster, then. Such a weird one. Wait a minute. Maybe it wasn't playing with the droplets. Maybe it liked the grime in the water. I moved the soaked cloak closer to it. The possible slime hopped in excitement and latched onto the hem of the garment. I see, so it's really the grime, then. Hey, no. Stop that. Don't melt my cloth. I hastily pulled the cloak up. It bowinged in protest. At least, I thought it was protesting. All the bouncing looked the same to me. I didn't mind it cleaning the dirt, but this was the only thing I had to wear. It wasn't allowed to eat it. I patted the wet cloak a few times while shaking my head, and then I pointed to the dirty part and nodded once. Hopefully it understood my miming. It probably did, since it replied with a few more bounces. Again, I was just guessing here. I didn't speak bouncies. Once more, I slowly lowered the cloak. This time the probable slime latched onto the correct part of the garment. It dissolved only the dirt, while leaving the fabric unharmed. Wow, that is amazing. I signaled it to stop, pulling the cloak away. It did, jiggling and quivering, somehow looking like an obedient dog. I firmly nodded, then pushed the garment back. It merrily crawled all over the cloth, wiping out the black stains in mere seconds. The cloak now looked just like new if you ignore the tears. The ball hopped, in what I was assuming to be a moment of pride in its work. I petted it as praise. Oh wow, this is totally jelly. Super jiggly. After some struggling, I got back into the half-dried cloak. Did it absorb the water too? It saw me dressing, and again it bounced in excitement. Well, my limbed form only had the height of a 5 years old. The cloak was going to get filthy again soon, considering I was dragging it everywhere, but this wasn't a problem I could solve. Right, clothes cleaned, plus a cute mascot to relax to. I was feeling good. Let's get going. I wanted to bring it along too, but I didn't think a wild monster would be tamed so easily just by feeding it if I counted dripping dirty water as feeding. And it was weak as heck. I'd be worried if it tagged along. I waved goodbye to the jiggly ball and began another session of intense puppetry. It didn't take long for me to realize, from the corner of my eyes, that the bouncing ball was still following me. I stopped, questions popping up in my mind. You're a slime, you're supposed to be crawling. No, wait, that wasn't what I should be thinking about. Why was it following me? Hey, I didn't have any more food for you, you hear me? It took the chance to approach my feet and start jiggling, waiting for me. God, that's cute. What was going on with this creature? This probable slime. Okay, that's just too verbose of a name. Alright, I was in a good mood, a rare happening these days, so you'll be friend number 2, number 1 being the elven kid. Let's name you. It's a slime, so. Slimer. Nah, that thing's ugly, and I didn't have a proton pack. It'll be my friend/pet, so Fido. Rejected. It wasn't even a dog. Oh, whatever, it's a blob. It's Blopsy from now on. The very moment I made the decision in my thoughts, Blopsy suddenly started to wiggle and hopped in a circle around me, looking overjoyed. What? Did something happen to it? I identified Blopsy once more. Blopsy race, jelly slimekin of Shetty, the demon. Magic points, 10 out of 10. Hit points, 10 out of 10. Total combat power, 10. Special skill, laundry. More lines in the description. And it was my kin now. At least I was sure it was no alpha tester, but what? I had a new comrade on my journey of pain. It's a jelly slime. Her name's Blopsy. Wait, was it a her or a him? Pretty sure slimes didn't have that sort of distinction anyway, so I say she's female from now on. Hey, Blopsy, say hi. Boing. Blopsy race, jelly slimekin of Shetty, the demon. Magic points, 10 out of 10. Hit points, 10 out of 10. Total combat power, 10. Special skill, laundry. She could handle a squirrel at most. Her special skill was to disintegrate any stubborn stains she touched. A terribly tiny blob. I couldn't even imagine how she'd fight. What should I do? Apparently she's my kin now, but it seemed next to impossible for her to do anything besides being a cute mascot and washing clothes. Well, the cuteness already made her indispensable to me, though. Like right now. While I was resting a bit to recover from the stress, Blopsy started to bounce after some grasshoppers, probably for food. Then she returned, giving up after catching nothing, and began munching on some wild grass. Food. I started walking again. She jerked in shock, then panic bounced after me. Once she caught up, she circled around me in excitement, tired herself out, then desperately climbed me. Now she was blobbing out on my shoulder, resting. Food. I might not know what she was thinking, but she seemed to understand what I wanted. Plus, somehow, I always had a sense for her location. And so I continued my journey to search for a human country, with the salve for my bruised soul sitting on my shoulder. Once we left the horned wolves' territory, the forest turned out to be surprisingly peaceful. Nothing was jumping out at us every few steps. There were only squirrels, rabbits, deers, and other such animals. No wonder Blopsy could survive. But even in such a peaceful forest, there still existed that weakest of monsters, the red caterpillars. Surprisingly ubiquitous, these bugs. They weren't worth anything to me at this point, and even Blopsy could probably outrun them. It'd be troublesome if they picked a fight, though, so I took off my hood and scared them off with my natural face. My head was just a blank oval. If I didn't have the rabbit ears, it'd be just an egg. 2 days since Blopsy came with me, my humanoid form skill leveled up again. Shetty race, white ghast low demon. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 330 out of 330, plus 5. Total combat power, 363 out of 363, plus 6. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification humanoid form. The amateur was an apprentice, now. I knew it. Once I acquired the foundation for shapeshifting, it's a lot easier to improve the skill. The dishwasher had graduated into the potato peeler. My food's good enough for me to eat, but not enough to serve any customers. I didn't need to build my sandcastle barehanded anymore. The rise in skill rank gave me a trowel, so to speak. My hands, once mittens, could do rock, paper, scissors now. I hadn't been idle with my hunting, either. There weren't any strong monsters, but I did get attacked by a bear. Not a huge one, just around 120 centimeters. It had some weird white markings around its neck. It had around 150 combat power, but in the end, it was just a normal animal. Pitiful, both in terms of the damage it could deal to me, which was none, and the experience I got from drinking it dry. Out of everything, it was Blopsy processing the bear that was most surprising. She squished herself, spreading out on the carcass. I left her alone for a while, thinking she was just nibbling. 30 minutes later, the whole bear was gone. Wait a minute, why was she still tiny? Where did all the meat go? She still looked like a 20 centimeters ball of jelly. I identified her again, but nothing had changed. I suppose it wouldn't, considering that I was the one who killed it. She only ate the corpse. If you could raise your level just by eating, then all the people of royal and noble families would get crazily muscular the older they get. I walked, inane musings in my mind, and stepped past the forest border before I knew it. Trees were still there, but sparse. Most of the land was grass. I scouted the area for human presence, thinking I might have finally gotten close to civilization. No signals I found resembled them. There were a few herbivores dotting the grasslands. They looked like plesiosaurs, seemed quite docile, and they had slightly higher combat power than me anyway, so I elected to stay away. I kept along the boundary between the forest and in grassland. It didn't take long for me to find a well-trodden road. Finally, about 5 meters wide, so it was probably a highway between towns. Humans recognizing me would be bad, so I put up my hood and detoured away from the road, wading into tall grass and copses of trees. Then I heard sounds of fighting from somewhere far off. I put Blopsy on my head and hurried. A while after, I saw 2 horse carriages being attacked by a small group of people. A perfectly cliched scene. Horses. So this world had trains, but not cars. A closer look revealed a group of spear-wielding men surrounding the carriages, wearing crude armor, numbering 10 odd, and looking much like the typical bandits. The defenders were dog and cat-eared beast people wearing ratty clothes. "Don't let those damn bandits get any closer," a chubby human shouted from the back of the carriage. 3 beast people readied their hand axes, faces close to tears, their necks bound by the same kind of choker that I once saw in the hand of the magician who attacked the elves. I suppose that proved my slave choker hypothesis, then. And that was some seriously impossible orders. 3 slaves with hand axes and knives, wearing nothing but rags, couldn't possibly hope to win against 10 plus decently equipped bandits. As I got closer to the scene, Blopsy hid inside the cloak's pocket. She seemed scared. With just those few chumps, a huge bandit, probably their boss, laughed uproariously. "Leave a carriage for us, and we'll spare your life. Come on, you lot, deal with them." He gave the order to his smirking underlings, yet the men didn't move. Instead, 4 well-armed beastman slaves came forward, their neck bound by the same kind of chokers. Both sides were fighting with slaves, just giving orders. Once the bandit slaves found out they were about to fight their own people, their faces stiffened in anguish, and they feverishly shook their heads. Was this another game event? I only ever saw demi-human slaves. If this wasn't an event, then what the hell was this world's humanity? I was dumbfounded, my eyes glued to the scene. Apparently, the chokers could compel the slaves. They began fighting with tears in their eyes. Damn animals, protect the goods. If you lose, I'll send your kids to the mines. Come on, fight harder. What, do you not care for your precious friends and family? Both the carriage owner and the bandit leader didn't spare a second thought before using intimidation as their first choice of motivation. I didn't even have the chance to interfere before all the trader's slaves were stabbed to death. None of the bandits died, and only one had a rather serious wound on his arm. The battle was over in a blink of an eye. Damn useless vermins. Waste of money. The trader swore obscenities at his dead slaves while kicking their corpses. The bandit leader looked satisfied. He ordered his men to appropriate one of the carriages. Iwahaha. All right, I'll take that one. Better get some better slaves next time, merchant, or hire adventurers. He glanced over the wounded slave and nonchalantly muttered, "Oh, right, you. Can't use you now, can I?" He stabbed a spear right through the bleeding slave. "Hey, merchant, compensate for that one too." The trader reluctantly acquiesced, his mouth twitching. He handed over several gold coins, an unspoken agreement, perhaps, between the merchants and the bandits, to turn banditry into a proxy battle, with slaves the only one getting hurt. The group of bandits leisurely walked off with one carriage. The merchant, unharmed, kept on cursing his slaves for quite a while. His driver had to calm him down, and they left the area with their single carriage. The 4 dead slaves were thrown to the roadside and ignored. Was this really a game event? My original plan was to aim for the bandits preying on travelers, but now I couldn't pick a side. I didn't want to pick a side. The merchants were pissing me off more, but if I let the bandits go, there was no guarantee I could find them again. At least I remembered all their faces. "Hey, Blobsy, which side should I go for?" She crawled out of my pocket and bounced in the directions of the bandits. "I see. The more the merrier, right? Hey, can you track the bandits without letting them know?" She bounced her reply. "I'll be dealing with the traitor first." I watched Blobsy hop off after the bandits. My request was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Would she be fine? Too late for takebacks now, anyway. I floated off after the merchant's carriage. I didn't think I could lose track of them, considering we were all on the same road, but I had to wonder how fast a human running, my top speed, could be comparing to a horse carriage. With the existence of railway technology, I feared carriages might have gotten some measure of improvements, too. If they could manage to get inside a village, it didn't even need to be a town. Before I caught up, I'd lose. The strange barrier would hold me off. There was likely no way for me to get in. I wasn't so delusional as to believe that I was doing this for justice, that this was fitting judgment for the kind of person who treated their slaves' lives as a game and then vented his anger on the deceased after he lost. I just wanted to avenge them, to at least lessen their regrets. Luck was with me. A few minutes later, I found the carriage parked by the wayside. The irritated merchant and his driver was checking their losses. "Come on, boss, it's good enough we got out of it safe and sound. It's just some food and slaves we bought from the village, isn't it? And the horse and carriage, those weren't just slaves, fool, they're expensive ones. Damn demihumans got a lot sneakier these days. You can't legally buy any new ones on the official markets. Scamming bastard fucking lied to me. They weren't combat capable, they were wastes of air, that's what. I was pretty sure the merchant was an exception, not the rule to this world's humanity. Right. The inspection seemed to be over. The merchant urged the driver to hurry, and the two set off. The trader was sitting next to his driver, instead of his usual spot inside the carriage. "Boss, you should get back in. It's dangerous here. Shut your trap. It's your fault you didn't notice the bandits early enough. I can't trust your eyes." The driver didn't bother hiding his distaste at the insult. "Right, how do I want to do this?" Originally, my plan of only aiming for the outlaws was to avoid having soldiers and beta testers sent after me. In that case, would an accident work? I took off the cloak, released my humanoid form, dispersed just enough to blend into the scenery, then moved in front of the wagon. The two still hadn't noticed anything wrong, but the horse did sense my attention, and fear began to permeate into its steps. The wagon started to swerve left and right. Hey, what's wrong? Calm down. The driver was nearly panicking. "Do something already," the merchant screamed, desperately holding onto his seat. Walking and playing with Blobsy weren't the only things I did these last few days. I'd been experimenting with reroll too, and I now had confirmation of the skill's success rate when used on others. It had a high possibility of failing if the target was focused, which also meant that if they were surprised or agitated, it'd work most of the time. That first time with the beta tester, I could chalk it up to chance. The second time I succeeded against the slave hunters, even I started to think it was too convenient. And after a few tests, I'd determined that my chances would go up if the target saw me. My supposition was that using the skill was easier on targets under the effect of the fear demon racial skill. Well, those tests were with weak monsters, though. This would be the first time I tried it on humans. Reroll. Despite the horse's fear and the swerving, the carriage was still somehow avoiding the rocks littering the road, but the horse didn't notice the identification crystal I dropped. The wagon lurched. The nearly obese trader lost his balance. He scrabbled, trying to grab onto the edge of his seat. I used the skill while throwing my presence at him. Reroll. Terror flashed on his face for a moment, and his hand grasped only air. He fell gracelessly on his head. Boss. The driver noticed, but too late. The moment his scream rang out, the merchant's neck was already broken. Shetty race, white ghast low demon. Magic points, 256 out of 335. Plus 5. Total combat power, 289 out of 368. Plus 5. My, that was a very unlucky fall. Also, apparently the more difficult the check, the lower the consumed magic cost. And it turned out I still receive experience from an accidental death. I was a bit too far away, though. I got his life force, but couldn't recover any magic. I'd have to write the crystal off as a loss, too. Well, it only had 3 uses left anyway. I felt Blopsy stop moving. She must have found the bandit's lair. I hurried to her, the merchant and his driver no longer in my thoughts. My mind was whirring with thoughts even as I flew. That scene back then, when I used reroll. I'd seen something like it before. Ever since I was a little kid, the people who bullied me, with deeds or with words, had always met with constant misfortune. Mysteriously, one had a broken arm just from tripping. One slipped on the stairs. One cut her fingers multiple times with the kitchen knife. Were those all my fault? Strangely, reroll always felt like the most natural thing in the world to me, even from the very first time I used it. Was it because I had always had it, ever since I was born? When I arrived, it was already dark. Blopsy bounced out of the field of tall grass and cuddled up to me. Cute. Oh, whoops, I forgot the cloak. Well. I commanded her to lie down, since she no longer has the safe house that was my cloak's pocket, and she splatted into a disc, completely hiding herself inside the grass. Whoa, she's a very skillful blob. I didn't need her to show me where they were. Some distance away was a hole leading into what looked like an exploratory mine. A man wearing grungy clothes was on watch, looking bored. I was going to attack their base. That thought sent shivers through me, not the kind of shivers associated with that disconnect with reality. If anything, it felt like excitement, as if I only just came to myself, my true self, in that moment. I moved, my body feeling more natural than ever. I approached his mist. For a moment, the watchman frowned at seeing a white mist under the moonlit, cloudless night. His expression quickly turned to fear at the sight of me. He was about to scream. I immediately rushed into his mouth before he could, then apply a bit of humanoid form to fill up his lungs and stifle his voice. It actually worked. I thought it might, yet I still surprised myself. He went blue in scant seconds, his face set in a rictus. Once his life force was drained, I wafted through the cracks in the worn-out, rickety-looking door. I saw light leaking out from my side just after entering the abandoned mine. I peeked through the hole and saw 2 men, looking like the quintessential bandits, gambling over a card game. Probably the other lookout personnel waiting for their shift. 2 bandit. Magic points, 20 out of 20. Hit points, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 48. Weak sauce. But, well, if they had the strength of mind to train themselves, they wouldn't be serving as bandit underlings like this. The only light source I could see was a single candle-looking thing. I shot out 2 copper coins I'd been storing inside me. Reroll. 1 coin missed even with the skill, but the other hit. It snuffed out only the fire, leaving the candle perfectly intact. Huh, what happened to the light? Did you drop a coin? I heard something like it. The men were startled, but not alarmed. They started to fumble around in the dark for matches. I snuck up to them and choked them out the same way. Their life force was taken without trouble. This was so much easier than doing combat absorption. Well, the idea might seem ingenious. Even I almost thought so at first. But in hindsight, if I could invade their mouths like this, I might as well stab them in the neck. Simpler that way. Shetty race, white ghast low demon. Magic points, 245 out of 353. Plus 18. Total combat power, 280 out of 388. Plus 20. A quick magical ping revealed around 20 other signals inside the mine. Some of them must be the slaves. I wonder how many were bandits. Around 6 of the signals were immobile, so I headed there first. In the darkness, I saw a large wooden cage. The bars were logs, around as big as a human adult arm. Inside were beastmen slaves, lifelessly sitting on the ground. 2 of them were kids. I felt my heart harden upon seeing the bruise marks on those 2. I couldn't release them right this moment. They still had their chokers. I couldn't be sure what they'd do. The other 10 signals, most likely the bandits, were all in one room. I was considering how to take them down when 2 of them started to move this way. I rose to the ceiling. The 2 of them, red-faced and stinking of alcohol, entered a side path and headed towards a barred, dilapidated-looking room. Seemed like a storeroom this time, not a prison. They opened the padlock and brought out a wooden crate full of bottles of some kind of alcohol. They were about as strong as the underlings before, so I ambushed them from behind. And just like before, I choked them before they could scream. They started to thrash around upon realizing they were being attacked. Their faces gradually turned blue from the lack of oxygen. The crate of bottles met the hard ground, surprisingly loud. I hurried to absorb their life force as fast as I could. Another bandit showed up, probably due to the noise. You too, what were you? The middle-aged bandit looked at the 2 with exasperation, perhaps thinking they were only up to some drunken hijinks. Then he saw their discolored faces, and he shouted, "Enemy at a log." I rushed forward to mute him, but too late. A group of bandits arrived, and the first thing they saw was a white mist desiccating their comrade. It's a monster. 1 versus 7. Balance would be subjected to further changes depending on who had how much magic and enchanted weapons. Damn, a wraith. Rabid thing. The bandit leader unsheathed a fancy-looking dagger that was hanging from his waist. The blade shone with a faint magical light. Bandit leader. Magic points, 40 out of 40. Hit points, 90 out of 90. Total combat power, 116. Middle-aged bandit. Magic points, 30 out of 30. Hit points, 75 out of 75. Total combat power, 65. Underling bandit. Magic points, 20 out of 20. Hit points, 60 out of 60. Total combat power, 50. The only ones with enchanted weapons were the leader, and the 3 middle-aged men wielding daggers as old as they were. My honest opinion, those slave hunters were way more powerful. Just the lack of a magician already cut down a lot of danger for me. And now I was even stronger than back then. I immediately charged towards the 3 underlings and enveloped them. But they weren't to be killed, not just yet. Wag, it's on my head. Help, stay still, you fuckers. One of the middle-aged bandits swung his dagger. I maneuvered to hide behind an underling, and the blade bit deep into his shoulder. He screamed, "Fuck, it's just a wraith. Stop pussying around and kill it." Another middle-aged bandit charged in and slashed. I didn't try to dodge this time, instead pouring myself into his mouth and sucked dry his life force from the inside. "Poison," the leader exclaimed. Nope, he just drew the wrong conclusion from seeing the man's rapidly paling face. I rushed towards my next target, the leader, and he lost his calm. He started to swing his dagger with wild abandon. Stay away. You lot, do something already. A few of his swings hit. I endured, holding on and draining his life bit by bit. One of the old bandits seemed to have run out of patience. He charged with a powerful thrust. Reroll. Wah, arg, damn you. I failed at making the stab miss me, but it also cut deeply into the leader's stomach. He held his wound and dropped to his knees. I see, even if the fear was affecting them, forcibly failing a focused attack was still difficult. But, well, the most dangerous threat had been disabled. I gently rose into the air, their faces contorted in terror. Right, time to clean house. A key clattered inside the cage. The beastmen prisoners exclaimed in surprise, swiveling their eyes between me, wearing a baggy robe I borrowed from the storeroom, and the key in incomprehension. Some distance away, I gestured for them to come to me. A man, perhaps the leader of this group of beastmen, seemed to have realized it was the key to the cage, yet his suspicions hadn't abated. Who are you? What's a kid doing here? I shook my head, then beckoned them one more time. He came to a conclusion some moments later, and nodded to his comrades. They unlocked the cage door and got out. I repeated the gesture. They were tense, but still nodded and followed me. On the way, they saw the dried-out bandits. Some of the women and children gasped and squeaked. And we arrived. It's him. The bandit leader was lying in a pool of his own blood, a hole in his stomach. Still alive, if barely. Surprise and hatred colored the prisoners' gazes. I pointed towards the weapons gathered in a corner of the room. The beastmen smiled savagely. The dying man's face warped in despair. We give our thanks. Once they had achieved their vengeance, I showed them the way to the storeroom full of clothing and food. They bowed deeply, then headed off on their own journey. Apparently this group was a tribe that used to live in the northern forest and grasslands. Human slave hunters found them a few months earlier, and almost the whole tribe was caught. They said most of the humans living in cities only ever saw beastmen as slaves, captured for free labor. What the hell was this world's humanity? Couldn't get more information from them, though, considering my muteness. And I didn't want to stay in contact for too long, lest my true nature got revealed. Well, I didn't quite mind. I'd know, sooner or later. That aside, I think I could use this mine as a hidden base for a while. The beastmen didn't actually take that much from the storeroom, saying it was supposed to be mine since I was the one who dealt with the bandits. So I think I'd be spending some time auditing. There were a lot of corpses, but not anymore. Blobsy had a feast. I thought she liked doing laundry, but maybe she was actually aiming for the blood splatter. Also, I gained another curious skill out of nowhere. Shetty Race, White Gas Low Demon. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 216 out of 392, plus 39. Total combat power, 255 out of 431, plus 43. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification, humanoid form, skilled packer. What is it now? The guide dog. Hello, everyone. Thank you for continuing to support World of Yggdrasia. We have wonderful news for all the beta testers who have been with us all the way until now. A new event is coming, Subdue the Berserkers. During the event, fast traveling between temples within a single country will be free. Locations of the Berserk monsters will be updated every 10 minutes. And finally, there will be a special item reward for the entire party for successful subjugations. Let us all fight for the prizes. Before I knew it, I had another weird skill. Shetty, Race, White Gas Low. Demon High Rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 216 out of 392, plus 39. Total combat power, 255 out of 431 plus 43. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification. Humanoid form, apprentice. Skilled packer. Skilled packer. I did pick up the silver and copper coins I found in the bandit's lair just in case. To think that resulted in a skill. Wait a minute. I had around 30 of the coins. That should be quite a bit of metal. But looking at myself from the outside, I couldn't see them anywhere. Where was I keeping my money? I mean, I knew I had them. If I dispersed myself into looser gas, I could see them laced here and there throughout my body. But once I raised the density back up, they disappeared. How curious. So anyway, I checked out the storeroom and grabbed whatever seemed useful. These included a spare robe and cloak, the bandit leader's magic dagger, some expensive-looking rings and necklaces, some bottles of what looked like medicine, some jerky as Blobsy's snacks, and more. Boing. Hey, you want some right now? But didn't you just eat more than 10 corpses? She looked sort of bummed out and started to clean up the blood on the ground, so I relented and gave her a slice of jerky. After some experimentation, it turned out I could store anything that fitted a single suitcase in both dimensions and volume, which meant that a dagger could fit, but not spears. Also, anything too weighty would make me feel sluggish, so I limited my heavy stuff to coins and potions. Alright, this would be our base to hunt monsters and bandits. Let's go. Boing. I left with Blobsy, completely unaware of the disaster looming upon us. Upon all secret alpha testers. There it is, 300 meters ahead. Alright, that berserker is ours. Yeah, awesome, let's go. Within the northern reaches of the central continent lay the Principality of Trendu, a country formed around the 32nd world sapling to be found. The sapling had blessed the lands with its boon. Despite the latitude, the climate still stayed relatively gentle. But the moment you entered the mountains, the greenery instantly gave way to white, the field of snow stretching unbroken all the way to the summit. A spectacle of utmost grandeur. A silver-colored troll was there, its fur blending into the snowy mountain. It was busy with its meal, a gray bear. At first glance, the subspecies looked close to a yeti. It was over 3 meters tall and about 2 meters wide, with arms as big as tree trunks. The troll looked at the bear it was eating and suddenly went quiet. Then, just as abruptly, it began to tear apart the carcass. It started pounding on a nearby boulder, crushing its own arms without a care, and roared in agony. Such madness unnerved the beta players, being so real they even forgot they were in a game for a moment. Their faces paled. Some gasped for a breath. To the south of the Principality of Trendu was a large country, the Treston Kingdom, which was the chosen base for these players. They were rank 3, or in other words, players who had reached level 3 in their combat skill. Native adventurers and World of Yggdrasia used the same ranking system. There was a rather popular thread on the game's VR boards, in which 2 parties of rank 2 players from Trendu reported their defeats at the hand of this berserk monster. And so, this group of players had come here after a few train rides overnight to challenge the troll. Total combat power is 499. No wonder, that's quite tough for rank 2. Hey everyone, gather up. I'm casting defensive buffs. Alright, it's go. Remember to pull the boss with arrows. Can I use poisons? Did somebody say poison? Here, try this neurotoxin I made. It's going to stick around for a long time. Holy shit woman, that's vicious. The poison arrow found its target. Overwhelming pain drove the berserk troll into a rampage. In a one-on-one fight, the troll would almost certainly win. So the group of 5 leveraged their teamwork. Magic corralled the monster while blades sliced into flesh. Almost 30 minutes later, the leader, a swordsman wielding a greatsword, decapitated it. Hell yes, man, regeneration and high power. That's a boss alright. And still no match for us. What's the reward? Did the corpse just disappear? Maybe because it's an event monster. Hey, it dropped something. A yellow gem. Is that the reward? Can't be, right. Oh hey, there's the system message. Woho, a year pass for the airship. Equivalent to 10 large gold coins. This yearly pass allowed you free rides on the airship, with which you can reach any country in Yggdrasia in just half a day. All members of the party received one. Once this info was posted on the forum, the race began. The race to hunt for the 20 remaining berserk monsters scattered all over the world. Secret Alpha Tester number 17. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent cessation of neural activity. As per procedure, requesting dispatch of disposal team. Oh boy, number 17 was pretty stable, considering. Now even that one's gone. Will it be a problem, sir? Number 17 was a rather special one. This event has been resulting in quite a few permanent losses in subjects. Brian, in the monitoring center of the 7th facility, was in high spirits. His secretary voiced her concern, and he flippantly replied with a shrug. Analysis of their powers and genomes already done. The government has been pressuring our bosses for faster results, too. The 6 months deadline's still a long way away, but with how enthusiastic our testers have been, we're already done with the basic data gathering. The event is just to finish up early. The 100 secret alpha testers weren't just random orphans. The existence of ESP, strange and mysterious special powers, was confirmed all over the world, and these testers were believed to be people possessing such powers. Over half of them only had trivial powers, such as vague precognition or slightly higher physical ability than the norm, but the first 23 chosen were a step above in power. Or in the case of a few among them, several steps. The powers of those few had helped bring about revolutionary technologies for mankind, many with applications in warfare. It was the beginning of a new era. Power and genetic analysis had already finished. The experiment was only continuing to see if the special abilities could be improved, or if new applications could be discovered, by putting the orphans into extreme stress conditions. That, and also to dispose of the testers, since they were no longer useful. The number of deaths and mental collapses climbed rapidly due to the event, even though only 1 month had passed since the experiment started. Already, there were 32 deaths from cessation of neural activity, with another 48 logged out from mental collapses. Only 20 alpha testers left. And just as expected, number 1 and number 8 are still hanging on. Man, aren't they stubborn? Oh, right. Wasn't there another one quite stable? Yes, sir, that would be number 13. Considering how all the other spiritual avatar testers had suffered mental collapses in just the first stage, she has an amazingly durable mind. Yeah, that's the one. The demon child. Not a very nice power though, that one. The albino girl who caused misfortune to everyone around her. Called a demon by her own parents. Abused and neglected. A pity her power wasn't actually probability manipulation like we wanted. According to the 3rd Research Facilities report, the power could only nudge the results. Implementations of it technically worked, but the results varied so much it just isn't practical. Plus, maintaining control over it would literally take the mind of a demon, the secretary said. Brian left, so even our little demon's a lost cause. I suppose it's impossible, then. Well, might as well have our alpha testers keep with the mana gathering until the end. Hold up a minute, what in the world was going on here? There it is, the white one. Don't let it get away. This one's gotta be ours. Just a few days after I took over the bandit lair, some beta testers came out of nowhere to attack my base. They were about as powerful as the ones chasing me before, so I still managed to repel them. Then a different party came by the next day. In the end, after finally gaining a base, I was forced to abandon it. I had planned on hiding out in the forest depths until the heat died down, yet every single one of them found me with ease. I tried to hide with my humanoid form several times, but a single kid wandering around in the forest proved to be too suspicious. Plus, I had to change back into gas form if I wanted to move quickly, which only helped them discover me faster and give chase. And I couldn't even choke them, since they were ouch. What's with this one? Poison didn't work. My turn. Thunderbolt. That hurt, damn it. What if you hit Blopsy? She's in my pocket. Magic swordsman-ish young man race, human male. Adventurer. Magic points, 45 out of 82. Hit points, 88 out of 90. Total combat power, 150. Archer-ish young man race, human male. Adventurer. Magic points, 52 out of 60. Hit points, 110 out of 110. Total combat power, 187. Unforgivable. They seemed to prefer projectiles, so I mingled in the trees and hid my cloak on the canopy of one. The magic swordsman gave chase without much care. I ambushed him from above. What the fuck? Calm down. Use your magic. Too late. My combat power was thrice theirs, so absorption worked quickly. Shit, my HP and MP's going down. Why wait? Stay there, don't move. They were afraid. Afraid of me. The archer tensed. He took out an expensive-looking silver-colored arrow from his bag and aimed. Just before the arrow was loosed, he suddenly seemed distracted by something. Reroll. What? The arrow pierced through the magic swordsman's knee, even without needing my skill. Oh, I see. Blopsy was waving the cloak on top of the tree. I sort of pitied the magic swordsman a bit, so I decided to leave him for last. Meanwhile, I dealt with the archer while he was still stunned. The battle ended without much fanfare. I sighed in relief. Perhaps just fearing me was enough to lower my opponent's success rate. Shetty race, white gas, low demon, high rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 355 out of 477, plus 85. Total combat power, 255 out of 499, plus 68. Unique skill, reroll racial skill, fear. Simple identification. Humanoid form normal. Skilled packer. I defeated 6 beta players in nearly as many days. A bit more power for me. I had a feeling I could evolve after breaking 500 magic. Strangely enough, the increase in my combat power wasn't as good as my magic. Also, after using humanoid form 24/7 to disguise myself, the skill leveled up again. To continue my cooking analogy, I was a cook in an eatery in the countryside. You know the type. The only place to eat in town. Had tons of choices on the menu, yet all the dishes were about the same. Not bad, but nothing to write home about either. With how quickly the skill was improving, I had to wonder how many levels did it have left. I didn't look much different. Mostly, it was just my surface looking more like a doll's, plus my body getting thicker. Whoops, I forgot. We should move. Staying still might invite another attack. Let's go, Blopsy. Boing. I was about as fast as a person running, so if I kept circling around the wilderness, the beta players shouldn't be able to catch up that easily. Right, how was I getting detected so quickly? The carriage driver I left alive might have seen me, but he shouldn't be able to pinpoint where I was going to. Was there a spell to detect my location? Such a pain. If that was a spell, outrunning its range might do me some good. It looked like going this way would return me to that mountain range again. I continued forward to the mountains. A while later, I detected magic signals that felt similar to the horned wolves. We were actually in sight range of each other. They didn't attack me, though, since I was stronger than before. I felt like there were less of them than there used to be. I expanded my detection range, just in case, and moved forward. Then I found several signals, probably beta testers, and a large signal near them. They were deep in the mountains. Normally I would have left there and then, but if the large signal was a secret alpha tester, then cooperation might be on the table. Holding on to faint hope, I peeked at them from afar. I saw the mad two-headed horned wolf. Two-headed horned wolf. Magic points, 315 out of 340. Hit points, 372 out of 415. Total combat power, 499. Some distance away, in a wide-open area littered with boulders and rocks, 10 adventurers who seemed to be beta players were locked in mortal combat with the two-headed horned wolf. Two-headed horned wolf. Magic points, 315 out of 340. Hit points, 372 out of 415. Total combat power, 499. The beta players were all at around 200 combat power. The party was composed of more than just warriors. At least, I also saw a magician, plus someone holding a great shield. A nimble woman wielding a short sword was holding the wolf's attention. When it tried to approach her, a shield holder immediately intervened and held it at bay. Any damage the shielder took was healed by a magician. Once the wolf stopped moving, the warriors swiftly attacked with axes and spears. Was this what good cooperation looked like? The beta players were moving so well. Even though the horned wolf was stronger than any single one of the players, I couldn't imagine it winning at all. But the wolf continued to toss around the warriors, all the while just barely avoiding being wounded too severely. The two heads were acting on their own, completely unpredictable. The party's assault had stalled. The left head was rampaging in beastly frenzy, while the right head calmly watched and dissected the beta players' movements, managing their attacks. The wolf wasn't exactly the mad beast that I met that first time. I didn't know what happened then. Perhaps they really was an alpha tester like me. If this continued, I was quite sure they'd lose. But what if? What if I joined in? The wolf was still putting up a good fight. Maybe I could tip the scale. Worst case scenario, I'd get killed alongside them. Oh, whatever, who cares? Death would just cut my magic in half anyway. I could handle being weakened for a while. Alright, charge. But Blobsy's fragile, so lie low over there, okay? Well, something's coming. The first one to realize was the bow-wielding woman. As my density in humanoid form rose whenever I gained more power, in gas form, I now covered an area of several square meters. Somebody check for new info. Shit, who'd have time for it right now? I got it. It's the white mist monster. Not a new one, some people have seen it before. According to the newest location update, it's getting here really quickly. Combat power, 499. An event monster, gotta be. Event. Was there an event going on? And the corporation was even exposing our locations for the beta players to hunt us. It's intangible. We need one magician and one archer to aggro it. Got it. We'll buy some time, so deal with the wolf quickly. Alright, freak, come over here. The archer was firing at me, all the while moving away from the main fight. I wasn't just making myself a bigger target with this form. As long as they could see me, they would fear me, even if the effect wasn't exactly significant. And while my defense did drop when spread out like this, damage received from piercing attacks was reduced, too. The fight would be a lot simpler if I could kill the two trying to drag me away, but they'd probably just run around to waste my time once I made my intention clear. Plus, magicians were my natural enemies, so obviously, I hit them right where they didn't want me to. I pretended to chase after the two. At the same time, I stretched out a part of myself from the edge of my gaseous form, aiming for a white-robed girl who was busy healing the shield holder. My tendril of gas slithered forward and struck. Ugh. Shit, it attacked us. Support. You two, come back. The reckless shapeshifting played hell with my vision. It's been a long time since I felt dizzy again, but I couldn't afford to be distracted here. I couldn't stay and leisurely absorb the healer here. The whole party would just gang up on me. So I circled around to her back, turned to humanoid form, grabbed her neck and used my dagger, formerly belonging to the bandit leader, to slice it open. All players, all humans, would take heavy damage if you hit them in the right spot. No matter how much hit points they had, this fact wouldn't change. The white-robed girl collapsed in a daze. The beta players were flabbergasted, and their shock quickly turned into an uproar. But the one most surprised was me. From the corner of my vision, I saw the calmer head of the wolf looked at me, and their eyes widened. The girl lying on the ground turned into light particles and disappeared. The beta testers started to panic. What the fuck is this thing? It just turned human. Calm down, guys, we can handle this. Anyone who can do healing magic, help the tank. Gotta deal with this white one first. Shit, the Cerberus Alag. The two-headed wolf. The Cerberus, apparently. They sent the tank flying and pinned him down. The tank covered himself with his shield, trying to ward off the fangs. The warriors attacked the Cerberus all at once to rescue him. Let go of him. Quick, heal, heal. The moment the beta players were distracted by the wolf, I returned to gas and attacked the magician who was readying a healing spell. Damn it, the white monster again. Fuck, it's targeting the supporters first. Melee people, help. The magician held himself in a ready stance with his staff, even while I was enveloping him. Perhaps he still remembered my previous shapeshifting. But I wasn't going to do that all the time. Unlike my gaseous form, my humanoid form was actually quite vulnerable to physical damage. I was delaying the magician's healing. As long as the Cerberus took the opportunity to finish off the tank, we should have a much higher chance of winning this. But my expectations were betrayed. Whoa, what the hell is wrong with this thing? As the warriors attacked the berserk head of the wolf, it changed target from the tank to them. Damn it, why? Just a bit more and the tank would have died. The calm head also looked like they wanted to finish off the tank, and suddenly, the cooperation between the heads were gone. The Cerberus started rampaging without reason or rhyme. And then, the wolf abruptly charged at me. Well, wait, no, why? I escaped in a hurry, but still got hit. The magician lost his balance and promptly found his neck between the wolf's fangs. The Cerberus unceremoniously bit down and crushed his head. Fuck, what's wrong with these monsters? We're retreating. Use bind-type skills to hold it. Got it. Shadow bind. The archer's odd-looking arrow stabbed into the Cerberus's shadow. The wolf continued to rampage, but they couldn't leave the spot. What about the white one? Stop it with spells. Combat arts if that doesn't work. Drink potions if you're out of magic. Obviously, I had no intention to face off against 8 beta players by my lonesome. I looked at the Cerberus eyes, and I could see even the calm head returning to its former madness like when I first met them, so I decided to retreat here. Luckily, the beta testers didn't pursue. According to what I'd learned here, the attacks on me were due to a game event that was going on. The alpha testers' locations were constantly broadcasted. Nowhere was safe for me. I didn't plan on having the Cerberus as a neighbor, so I silently grabbed Blopsy and left. I followed along the mountain range, going through craggy terrain and steep cliffs. This should make it much harder for the beta players to follow me. Hopefully I could survive through this event just by wandering around these mountains, I thought gloomily. A quick check confirmed that no one was near me. I sighed in relief. I wondered if there was somewhere to hide away. The beta players already knew where I was, but at least I wouldn't be getting sniped. Dying that way would be terribly unfunny. Wait, that cliff face over there. I think I saw a hole. I headed there, thinking to have a bit of a rest, and found out it was some sort of den for a rather large animal. Perhaps I could evolve now, after that fight. If so, I might be able to win even against that beta player party. Shetty race, white gas low demon high rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 433 out of 502, plus 25. Total combat power, 482 out of 499. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification humanoid form skilled packer. Evolution unavailable. Yes, my magic finally broke 500. In my evolution, unavailable. Why? And my combat power didn't follow my magic this time. Okay, deep breath, calm down, let's just identify that line. Evolution unavailable. As of the current game version, no further monster evolutions is implemented. New evolutions are planned for beta version 2.0. What? So us alpha testers couldn't evolve any further. If I couldn't evolve, did that mean my combat power was stuck here? What should I do? Even if I survived past this event, how was I to hang on for half a year with just this? Boing. Oh yeah, I'm fine, Blopsy. It felt like I almost ceased to exist for a moment there. Thanks to the little jiggly ball, I regained some measure of control. Alright, let's think positive. I no longer needed to sleep with this body. That meant that if I could escape to the sea, beta players wouldn't be able to reach me, right? Well, not like I even knew where it was. I started to climb up the mountain, thinking I might be able to see where the ocean was. What was this? I saw scratches on the rock face. There were a lot of them. No, wait, they weren't just scratches. They were English. Who wrote this? Could it be? This was the Cerberus's lair. Even in my humanoid form, I still couldn't write very well. I couldn't imagine how long and how much effort it took to carve these letters. The handwriting was horrible and at the same time, desperate. I started reading. My name is Hans. If anyone can read this, I have left these words behind so that you can know the truth of the corporation behind World of Yggdrasia and the truth of this world. I am test subject number 1. I was granted the body of a fiend wolf. I was dropped into this world as a test subject for an experiment investigating the mental stress of using monster avatars. I knew it. That Cerberus really was an alpha tester. The monster avatars, our avatars, had been calibrated to a horrifying degree. No normal game developer would allow this. They explained to us testers that our sensitivity would be set to the maximum. They neglected to mention that it was the hardware's maximum, not the software's. Pain was several times the normal amount. Eyes so sharp I could see through darkness clear as day, and my hearing was similarly powerful. I was shuddering just from the wind touching my skin. My sensitivity was so high I couldn't even sleep. I had expected these to an extent, but even with that, my mind was quickly pushed to its limits. Perhaps monsters not very sensitive to pain, such as slimes or avatar types with an undefined form, would have an easier time. But they had to deal with a problem no normal avatars had to, the ludicrous sense of disconnect from their real bodies. At least, I wouldn't be able to bear with it. As a matter of fact, according to my own investigations, almost every testers who used amorphous avatars had logged out after a few days. I didn't see any of them return. If there was someone who can handle such avatars, I think it would take a person with an incredibly diminished sense of self. Well, I used to have people rejecting my existence all the time. The purpose of this experiment was to design a system that could make use of a monster's power, a power wholly non-human, as much as possible. They would test the limits that a human can endure, and what the user couldn't, they would leave to an AI's management. But that wasn't to implement human and monster PvP into the game as was explained to us 100 testers. It was for limited warfare, for use in invasions. Once all of us alpha testers are gone, they would begin a secret beta test with the army's soldiers. Warfare, and they were planning to grind all of us down to dust just for data. I had discovered the truth. I had talked to my allies. We planned on taking refuge in this world, the world that the government was planning to invade. You must be wondering what world I was talking about. But you must have already realized, right? You're here reading this, after all. Look at the incredibly realistic scenery. The people with thoughts so complex no AI could possibly be driving them. Don't you think it feels just the same as using an avatar to visit somewhere else on Earth? You must have realized that this world of Yggdrasia isn't just a bundle of data on a server. It is no fiction. Yggdrasia truly exists. What? This world of Yggdrasia actually existed. Was he saying this was an actual planet somewhere in the universe? I read on, hoping that the words could shed light upon my confusion. This place was discovered due to my mother and her power, manipulation of cyberspace. 30 years ago, when my mother was still active as a hacker, her power was analyzed. The results became the foundation of the very first brain-computer interface VR system. A certain corporation in the defense industry recruited her. In her time working there, she accidentally discovered a faint disturbance in cyberspace. Further investigations and analysis revealed a world entirely separate from Earth. Yet, that world was much too far away. With the use of the latest technology of the time, Digistruction, they sent a scouting drone that could create its own light sources through. It turned out that the planetary system this new world belonged to did not correlate to any records on Earth. Yggdrasia itself was determined to be an Earth-like planet, but its atmosphere was different and, more importantly, unsuitable for Earth humans. So someone found out about this planet. Then why did no one publicize this? It would have been the find of the century. Or perhaps somebody wanted this to be kept a secret. Regardless, investigations continued. The corporation had officially received the government's blessings to continue the survey. They found out that this world was surprisingly similar to Earth in culture, and that the native humans' level of civilization was equivalent to Earth's Middle Ages. The similarities received heavy attention from the scholars. In the end, they came to a conclusion. The form of energy that had created the dimensional disturbance had also, in the past, caused some sort of information to travel both ways between Earth and the New World. Natives in the New World called that energy mana. Mana. So if this world was real, then did that mean magic was real, too? This world was sustained by the infinite mana created from the world tree and its saplings. Compared to the other races of the New World, the humans there were relatively weak but could quickly increase their population. They had founded countries, like parasites leeching off the tree and the saplings. Yet despite their achievements, they were only using mana as fuel for the special ability they called magic. The corporation wanted to explore the possibility of using mana as a source of normal energy. They, and their government, believed that drone surveying wasn't enough. After deciphering the native language, they pretended themselves to be God to the kings of the larger countries, complete with divine prophecies. The false god gained faith with agricultural reforms, simple yet convenient technology for the mass, and other such improvements. With trust now cemented, God told the people to research about mana and to create the technological foundation for using mana to power tools. So they put on a mask of God, granted the native people technology, then had them begin research. Where were they going with this? The research was successful, and the first applications were in developments of magitech tools that served a role similar to electrical appliances. With the technology transfer, in just 10 odd years, magitech trains and airships were born. Before Earth's intervention, the human population in Yggdrasia were several hundreds of millions. With access to powerful magical barriers and weapons, in 10 years, that number quickly swelled. At first, it was simply intellectual curiosity. Next, the corporation wanted to find a way to utilize the faint mana they detected from the dimensional tier. Then 10 years ago, everything changed when they discovered the child that would be called number 17. Native fauna on Yggdrasia could kill other life forms to absorb magic and life force from their victims and convert them into their own power. And number 17, found in Tibet, had the same ability. With the results from analyzing the child's genome, the corporation established a method to gather mana by having the remote-controlled drones kill other living beings. Did that mean that when I defeated enemies and raised my magic, a part of that was sent to Earth? And perhaps the death penalty that cut my magic in half was also for this purpose. From observing the new world, they understood that it was possible to send waves, like radio signals, through the dimensional distortion. From the fact that mana was faintly leaking to Earth, they hypothesized that mana was a form of wave that suffused the atmosphere. Based on that theory, they succeeded in creating a system to send the mana that the drones gathered to Earth. At the time, there was no way to make the drones even decently powerful. However, the problem was solved once they discovered number 8. His power was to materialize force of will, combining it with another power previously analyzed, the power to convert materials from the surroundings or from the atmosphere into amino acids and other such biological matter. The corporation was no longer limited to robotic drones. They could now create the human form, so similar as to be indistinguishable from real human beings. The VR avatar system had already been introduced on Earth by then. Higher realism came with its own problems, such as mental instability. To investigate these problems further, and at the same time seeing the opportunity of infinite energy in the form of mana, an opportunity that arose once sending human avatars into the new world became possible. The government invested a vast sum of money into the corporation and told them to develop a system for large-scale mana harvesting, which resulted in this game, World of Yggdrasia. I see. Just the beta test alone already had 3 million applicants. If the same amount of people bought the game when it's officially released, the corporation would basically gain 3 million soldiers and their money, too. But the government judged that the game alone wouldn't be enough to cover the country's energy needs. They urged the development of weapons that could gather mana more efficiently, weapons that could be deployed on both Earth and the other world. Non-humanoid remote-controlled weapons, monster avatars. This corporation had branch offices everywhere on Earth. Within research centers masquerading as orphanages, they conducted analyses upon the 20 people with special abilities that they'd gathered. With the completion of mana-gathering avatars, now the corporation was looking into investigating the problematic sensation of disconnect that was happening to monster avatars. They were planning on pushing us secret alpha testers into the worst circumstances possible as a part of their experiment. They would see all of us bled dry, so we were just disposable pawns. And that inhumane orphanage was even one of theirs. Writing this must have taken number 1 days. In the beginning, the words were chicken scrawls, but they got better as time went on. And then, they started to deteriorate. Us secret alpha testers were orphans from around the world, every single one possessing some sort of mysterious power. But many of us were orphaned in suspicious happenings. Some of our parents were killed, some bankrupt, some gone by other means. At first, there were only 23 of us. We were gathered at the research center, with numbers becoming our new names. Then, at the government's behest, the corporation added another 77 despite their trivial abilities. Exactly 100 of us were dropped into this new world. Around here was the point where number 1 mind must have been breaking down. His words began to veer off course, letters started varying in sizes, and once in a while I could see deep gouges in the rock wall. My mother, the woman who discovered this world, were pushing her power more and more with each investigation. In the end, it crippled her. I inherited the same power, even if mine was much weaker. Then I met number 8 and number 17 at the research institution's orphanage. We spent our childhoods with only each other to turn to. With my power, we had managed to infiltrate the personal computer of a researcher through the internet. That was how we knew we were only disposable test subjects. We had no families, no friends aside from each other in the real world, in Earth. So we started looking for ways to escape to the new world. That's impossible, right? Weren't they using avatars because they couldn't send live humans here? The unique skills of us secret alpha testers were based on our real abilities. With the mana native to Yggdrasia, perhaps our powers could be strengthened. Materialization of will, absorption of magic and life force, and mental manipulation of cyberspace. These are our powers. If we can use them to their full potential, we should be able to escape the shackles of the system, transfer our consciousness, and gain new living bodies here on this world. Even if doing it would send our real bodies into a coma, there's a high chance the corporation would still keep us powered people alive. As long as our connection to the machine were still intact, no matter how tenuous it might be, I could still maintain and strengthen it through our minds. But our plan was a failure. We underestimated them. It was a desperate plan, born from children clutching onto faint hope. Here, number 1 handwriting began to turn outright misshapen. They wanted to use us until our minds either broke down or until our brains stopped working altogether. The broken ones only had an extra month of life support. After that, they would be disposed of. The corporation's promise of half a year that they told us, an utter lie. We were never meant to survive that long. Day after day, I saw myself losing bits and pieces of my mind. My first death here, in this world, was a revelation, with our sense of pain adjusted to the maximum. The moment of death brings with it agony like nothing else. Among those of us who had avatars with a sense of pain, that first death must have sent dozens into comas, especially the younger kids. And the feeling of disconnection, too, they worsened day by day. I thought I could hold myself together with a familiar animal form, but once I evolved, I grew another head. That head is just a beast. Violence is all that drives it. It would take any opportunity to take control of my body. I can't rest even for 1 second. I can't sleep. It would eat me alive if I so much as closed my eyes. I didn't know how bad he had it, but I could see how far gone he was from his deteriorating letters. Whoever's reading this, if you're a secret alpha tester like us, then you must take our magic stones. All 3 of ours. We promised to each other to keep our powers in the stones so that even if one of us died, the rest could still live on. Perhaps it's impossible. It would be the end once our real bodies were destroyed, after all. But there must be a way. It must be possible. The world tree with infinite mana is here. The holy land that surrounded it rejects normal monsters, but maybe a monster with the ability to absorb magic can find a way. I can't do it. This is the end for me. There are only around 20 of us alpha testers left. I found that out after infiltrating their monitoring system. Even number 17 had lost his mind. He was much too kind. His heart couldn't endure this life of kill or be killed. By the time you read this, if the 2-headed wolf is still alive, then please kill me. His words stopped here. After that, it was just the scratchings of a maddened beast. I was relatively sane thanks to a series of fortunate coincidences, but it looked like everyone else didn't have my luck. Most of them had broken. It must have been torturous. Yet you still held on, fighting those beta players. You didn't want to die by the hands of that corporation, right? Yeah, I got it. I won't let them kill you. I'll lay you to rest myself. The guide dog. Hello, everyone. Thank you for continuing to support World of Yggdrasia. How about this event? Did you have fun? My, you can't fight because the death penalty is too scary. For the less adventurous of our beta players, we have good news. The number of berserkers has finally been reduced to 7. As of the moment, the death penalty has been removed until the event is over. And would you believe it? Everyone will also receive a boost ticket for free. Boost tickets will be available for purchase in the cash shop in a later date. Let us all fight for the prizes. The experiment started with 100 testers. Under the torturous mental assault, most of them had already left the living world. Within the 7th Research Center, the fates of the last 7 testers were being reported on monitors. Secret Alpha Tester Number 9. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent termination of consciousness. Subject has been logged out. As per procedure, requesting transport to collection facility. Secret Alpha Tester Number 15. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent cessation of neural activities. As per procedure, requesting dispatch of disposal team. 5 alpha testers left. To fulfill the promise with number 1, I headed towards where he was fighting the beta testers. I didn't even remember his real face. Shetty race, white gas low demon high rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points. 502 out of 502. Total combat power, 499 out of 499. Unique skill, reroll racial skill, fear. Simple identification humanoid form skilled packer. Evolution unavailable. It had been a whole day since that fight. I'd already healed up. Was I just nervous about fighting him? Or did knowing the truth changed something in my consciousness? The sense of disconnect used to feel horrible that first few days. Now it was nearly gone. Before I knew it, I had learned to control this body of mist like I'd always been born with it. I wondered if I was mad, too, in my own way. When I was going towards yesterday's battlefield, I detected 3 signals with high magic heading straight here. Probably beta players coming to hunt me. There it is. That's the white mist monster mentioned on the website. Awesome. Man, I thought someone else already got it. Everyone used their tickets. Yeah. Then let's go. 2 frontline warrior types, 1 shield holder. All of them were around 120 combat power. Why did these guys even bother coming? I charged at them at top speed. An arrow whizzed towards me. Before it could hit, I scattered myself thin to reduce the damage, while at the same time shooting out a part of me to wrap around the bow-wielding warrior. Holy shit, what's this? Dude, didn't you read about how it could transform? Hang on, it's gonna get hot. One warrior sheathed his sword, then flung fire from his hand. I immediately gathered into my humanoid form, hiding behind the bow-wielding warrior. While stabbing his abdomen with my dagger, he screamed, burned and stabbed. He departed as motes of light. The scene shocked the other warrior still. I rushed at him, covering his whole body, and began to absorb his life. I'm saving you, hold on. My victim's health was plummeting. The shield-bearer unsheathed his own sword and ran towards me, but his steps slowed midway. Perhaps the image of his friend burning another one alive was still fresh on his mind. I took the chance to finish draining my victim dry, and once again, another player scattered his light. Well, why? Why is the mist so strong? Event monsters aren't supposed to be this difficult. The shield-bearer shouted in his turmoil. Well, that would be because I wasn't an event monster. Also, I might look white, but I wasn't actually mist. Gases would be more accurate, really. I dispersed my gaseous body into a large cloud to make him fear me. Then while he was rooted to the spot, I engulfed and drained him dry. Shetty race, white gas, low demon, high rank. Magic points, 509 out of 540, plus 38. Total combat power, 499 out of 499. Secret alpha tester number 3. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent termination of consciousness. Subject has been logged out. As per procedure, requesting transport to collection facility. Secret alpha tester number 20. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent termination of consciousness. Subject has been logged out. As per procedure, requesting transport to collection facility. 3 alpha testers left. So it's confirmed, then. My combat power didn't rise any further, even if my magic did. I had a bad feeling about this, so I didn't bother looting them and just headed straight towards yesterday's battlefield. As I was getting closer, more and more magical signals that I assumed to be beta players showed up on my radar. There were far more than yesterday. A quick count already showed at least 30. And right in the center, riddled with wounds, was the Cerberus. Number 1 was putting up a good fight all by his lonesome. Cerberus, number 1. Magic points, 225 out of 422. Hit points, 176 out of 537. Total combat power, 499. Everywhere on his body were burns, bruises, gashes. No patch of skin was left unbloodied. 5 shield holders were surrounding him. Just the vanguard alone already had around 20 people. Some distance away, magicians were restricting his movements and throwing powerful spells. More than half the beta players had over 200 combat power. Yet number 1 still hung on, even if only barely. The reason became evident as I moved closer. Stop getting in our way already. We told you, we had dibs on it. And who the hell just cut into our fight? Fuck off. There's barely any event monster left. You think we're leaving just because you tell us to. Apparently, multiple different parties were fighting over him. The latecomers probably forced their way in and tried to killsteal. I dove into the field of carnage. Someone noticed and shouted, "There's that white monster again. There, that one's for you late parties." Shit, fine, but this isn't over, you hear me. That final reluctant, caustic reply came from a party of 6. They left the group of players surrounding number 1 and headed towards me. All a shit, an intangible type. What a pain in the ass. Why don't we return to that wolf instead? Don't you still have plenty of MP? Spells and combat arts should work. Just deal with this one quickly, then we can get back to killstealing the other one. Fuck yeah, let's go. Damn you. If you're not taking this seriously, you don't get to stand in my way. I dispersed myself to the absolute limit that my consciousness could handle to minimize the damage from arrows and spells. As a 5 meters wide cloud, I charged forward to engulf all of them. What the hell's this? I can't see shit. Where's the real body? No, I didn't have one. The confusion must have led them to the wrong conclusion. I began lightly draining the whole party while they still couldn't find their way outside. At the same time, I gathered myself at the neck of the magician who was firing the most dangerous spells, creating just an arm to slice his neck with my dagger. He collapsed on the ground, dumbfounded. Creating the arm lessened the mist density by the same amount, so everyone else noticed his death. Come on man, this ain't a joke. What the hell's with this monster? Think later, just get out of here first. And don't group up. As I expected, lower density meant lower absorption speed. I didn't get much, but some healing was better than nothing. On whose order, I didn't know, but they were getting ready to scatter. I set my eyes on my next target, the archer with a powerful enchanted bow. Even among the beta players, there were the experienced gamers and the newcomers. This archer was the former. I had to crush him while I still had the chance. It's coming here. Shadow bind. The archer's mouth twitched something fierce. He shot the same spell I saw the other day at the ground under me. Reroll. He feared me, even if only for a moment, and that was enough for me to resist his spell. I shrunk myself down to a humanoid form of loose gas, about as large as an adult, without actually engaging the shapeshifting skill. The archer was still petrified when I wrapped my arm around his neck and drained him dry. Seeing me, the other party members stumbled back a step. Fear was evident on their faces, except the thuggish leader. Fucking shit, why the hell are we getting down so quickly? His face reddened with rage. He approached, swinging his sword in wild abandon. But I didn't have time to play with you. Wah, it's running away. I left their shouts behind me and moved at top speed toward number 1, still embroiled in battle. Chase after it. Don't lose it. We were approaching number 1. The people surrounding the wolf angrily yelled at the party behind my back. The white one's here again. What the hell were you doing, idiots? You can't even keep it away. Shut your trap. Secret Alpha Tester number 8. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent cessation of neural activity. Subject has been logged out. As per procedure, requesting dispatch of disposal team. 2 Secret Alpha Testers left. Far away, number 1. Shivered. He let out a howl full of grief. Cerberus, number 1. Magic points, 179 out of 434. Hit points, 65 out of 550. Total combat power, 499. He was nearly down. I headed straight for him, but the people in front of me flung spells upon my path. Out of the way. He is mine. A few hit. I changed my position. At the same time, I detected a spell being fired from behind me. Reroll. I barely managed to dodge. The spell continued to hit a magician who was tying up number 1 movements. They screamed, losing their calm. I turned into my gaseous humanoid form again and gave them a hug. The last bits of their life force quickly emptied. Shetty race, white ghast low demon high rank. Magic points, 464 out of 558. Plus 18. Total combat power, 499 out of 499. What the hell are you doing? Shut the fuck up. You stop hitting our prey. The groups didn't care that I killed a few of their party members. They started insulting each other. A few warriors from the group surrounding number 1 readied their weapons against the thuggish party leader, protecting their magicians and archers. In the meantime, I picked up the rapier that dropped from the magician I killed. I made a dash for number 1. Stop the white one. Except for the 4 shield holders, the rest of the vanguard readied their weapons and approached me. Spells and arrows shot out from behind them, piercing through me. Sword slash. The warriors aren't hit. My consciousness blurred for a moment. Shetty race, white ghast low demon high rank. Magic points, 371 out of 558. Total combat power, 426 out of 499. Both my magic and power took a huge hit, but I could still fight. The attack staggered me, but I kept moving. An axe-wielding warrior ran, getting ready to jump at me with another strange combat art. My turn. Raising. Reroll. Wah. His foothold was unstable. My skill tripped him and I slipped past through his side. Shetty race, white ghast low demon high rank. Magic points, 336 out of 558. Total combat power, 391 out of 499. Don't let it join up with the server arc. A shield bearer turned in my direction. The moment he did, number 1 fired a ray of lightning from his horn, scorching his back. Cerberus, number 1. Magic points, 112 out of 434. Hit points, 34 out of 550. Total combat power, 499. Archers, stop it now. Got it, shadow bind. Reroll. Damn it, still couldn't get out. No, there's still a chance. Again. Reroll, 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 reroll. Shit, it's out already. My assumption was that at the moment, I wasn't rolling to resist the binding attack, I was rolling to dispel it. So I retried a few times, and my gamble paid off. Shetty race, white ghast low demon high rank. Magic points, 236 out of 558. Total combat power, 291 out of 499. Shit, I'll hold it off. Get over here. As a shield bearer used an unfamiliar art, he started to glow, looking very eye-catching. Reroll, reroll. My vision returned to normal. Once I flew past his head, I saw the near-dead Cerberus right head look at me. Number 1. Madness retreated from his eyes, and I thought I saw him smile. And then he bit into the left head, preventing it from attacking me. Yeah, I'm here. I shaped myself into the gaseous humanoid form, then stabbed number 1 through his forehead with my rapier. The blade broke. I clung onto his neck, absorbing all of his remaining magic. Number 1 disappeared in specks of light, releasing a blue magic stone. It was then sucked inside my body. Secret Alpha Tester number 1 confirmed mental collapse and subsequent cessation of neural activity. As per procedure, requesting dispatch of disposal team. 1 Secret Alpha Tester left. Shetty race, white ghast low demon high rank. A low demon made of dust and gases. An intelligent spiritual life form. Magic points, 212 658 out of plus 100. Total combat power, 267 out of 499. Unique skill, reroll. Racial skill, fear. Simple identification. Humanoid form, skilled packer. Everyone was all thinking the white mist was going to reinforce the wolf. Instead, they witnessed a scene of a monster killing another. They stared at me in sheer bewilderment. Well, what the fuck? We lost one. The thuggish leader was the first one to found his voice. One of the shield bearers shouted back angrily. It's your fault you couldn't keep it away. This one is ours now. Don't fuck with me, you. That's enough out of you. Shut up. The thuggish party leader was about to unsheath his weapon. I flew at him in a flash of woven speed and tore apart his throat with my broken blade. He gurgled, the last thing he could do before being drained dry. Farewell, number 1. Well, I might be joining you pretty soon anyway. Maintaining my vaguely human shape, I flicked the blood off of my rapier. My cheeks split open in a fiendish, too wide grin. The beta players were staring at me with evident terror. But I won't go quietly. Secret Alpha Tester number 13. Confirmed mental collapse and subsequent termination of consciousness. Subject has been logged out. As per procedure, requesting transport to collection facility. As of the moment, all 100 Secret Alpha testers have been logged out. Once the logout procedure for the final tester was finished, the monitoring room exploded in cheers of relief. It had been a whole month of constant monitoring 24/7, even if the watchers were rotated in shifts. Deputy Director Brian and his secretary entered the room. He congratulated the staff with theatrics. Awesome work, everyone. The experiment's runtime was cut down by quite a lot from our original plan of half a year, but thanks to all of your efforts, we've gained some amazing data. There's a barbecue and some beers waiting for you in the courtyard. Anyone who's finished their work, feel free to take your rest. People working into the night, don't touch the beers, all right. Cokes are all you're getting. The employees left their seats, with a few chuckling at Brian's words. There was still work left to be done. But for now, it was time to celebrate the completion of a smooth sailing project. Monitors and displays were turned off, one after another. The staff were all in the courtyard by now, with only the secretary giving the room a final check to see if there was anyone still staying behind. As she left the room, the door locked behind her. An unbidden thought came to her mind. Subject 13. An albino girl. Only 11, yet with eyes far more mature. Spiritual type avatars were considered to be the worst type to use. Despite that, she had survived until the very end, her mind unyielding. But in the end, even she broke. Her consciousness was gone. At least the data she left behind would be of great use for the next wave of secret beta testers. Testers with collapsed psyches would continue to be observed for the next 30 days. After that, they would be disposed of. She remembered the sight of the alabaster girl, with scarlet eyes that reminded one of nothing so much as a rabbit. Perhaps she should come see the girl one last time, even if her body was now nothing but an empty shell. But something feels strange here, the secretary thought. The other testers had had their minds broken after their own deaths. But this girl wasn't like them. Could that mental fortitude of steel be so easily broken just after 1 or 2 times dying? Some time later, within the empty locked room lit only by faint emergency exit lights, one of the screens flickered on. Lines of text ran through the display. Evolution available. Yes or no? Yes. Suddenly, the main monitor display turned on. Appearing on the large screen was the silhouette of a snow-white girl with drooping rabbit ears. She pursed her lips in a demonic smirk. Author's note, a bit of explanation for the mana harvesting. After the dimensional tier, and subsequently the new world had been discovered, the company experimented to see what they could send through. Physical objects didn't work, but waves such as radio signals did. They also detected some mana leaking into Earth, albeit faint, and so they hypothesized that mana was a sort of energy wave floating around in the atmosphere. All native fauna shared a trait, the ability to kill other life forms to gain mana. By creating remote-controlled vessels directly in the new world, granting them the same ability, then sending them to kill the local monsters, vessels would gather mana. Once they logged out, any extra mana, or in case of player deaths, half of their magic as a penalty, would be sent back through a collection facility built inside temples, the spawning spots for players. Currently, research into other methods to directly gather mana besides using remote-controlled vessels were still ongoing, but practical implementations were a long way away. The new world was estimated to have around a few hundred million native humans, and to gather magic from these people, they needed monsters, which was the reason for the creation of beta monster avatars, developed as a more efficient method of mana harvesting. Due to the fact that the new world's human race was not considered to be the same as Earth's humanity, and thus received no protection from Earth's human rights, invasions were not considered to be infringing on any laws. On paper, mana was supposed to be used as a new source of clean energy. But in closed rooms, people were thinking about using monster avatars, which had demonstrated power equivalent to tanks while still having the mobility of beasts in limited warfare on Earth.